Chapter 1285. In the vast void, a gigantic bird the size of a small mountain flapped its wings and flew, heading straight for the Tianhuang County that was 5,000 kilometers away. Yi Chen stood on the back of the bird and looked at the towering mountains that passed by. He could not help but urge, "How long until we get there?" The reason why he was in such a hurry to rush to the Tianhuang County was because he had searched Wei Yundi's soul and found out that Yi Wushuang had appeared in the Tianhuang County and was suspected to be taken in by the lord of the Tianhuang County. After the other 8 counties, including the Sky Demon County, received the news, they had already sent powerhouses to the Tianhuang County to force the lord of the Tianhuang County to hand over Yi Wushuang. Hearing his words, the bird paused and said in awe, "Master, we'll be there in 2 hours at most." Its name was Mountain Eagle, and it was one of the wild beasts under the lord of the Sky Demon County, Wei Yundi. After Wei Yundi died, Yi Chen controlled all of his subordinates and took control of the Sky Demon County. Hearing that, Yi Chen frowned and looked at Ing. "How long will it take for you to recover?" "I'm too badly injured," Ing said calmly. "When the Immortal Palace attacked me that day, it almost shattered my body. A mere Wei Yundi isn't enough for me to recover unless I find my avatar." "Your avatar is here?" Yi Chen was surprised. Ing avoided the topic and changed the topic. "I keep my promise. If you want to leave this place, you still need to find the ghost ship. If I remember correctly, you said that the ghost ship is in this forbidden sea." Yi Chen squinted and looked at him. "Where is the ghost ship in the forbidden sea now?" Ing said word by word, "The end of the darkness." Yi Chen's eyes flashed imperceptibly when he said that. "The end of the darkness? In other words, at night?" "No." Ing shook his head and said, "You should have noticed the abnormality of this world. Once it's night, no one dares to be in the dark. They all rely on the stone statues to protect them." He could not help but glance at Yi Chen as he said that. "In this world there will be day and night. There will be yin and yang. Have you ever thought about why the night on Earth and the ancient desolate realm is fine, but this place is in such a situation?" As soon as he said that, Yi Chen's pupils constricted violently. "Are you saying that it's not because of the night, but because darkness will invade the night as soon as it's night time?" Ingzan looked at him and nodded slightly. "That's why I said the ghost ship is at the end of the darkness. If you want to find the whereabouts of the ghost ship, you must first find the end of the darkness." Yi Chen said nothing, but his eyes could not stop flickering. "It seems like I'll have to venture into this so-called darkness after I find Wushuang. The darkness could devour the flesh and blood of living people, but he was not afraid." 5,000 kilometers away from the Sky Demon County, the Heaven Desolate County. As one of the 9 counties of the Wasteland world, the Heaven Wasteland County was the most mysterious of the 9 counties. Over the countless years, the other 8 counties had changed masters countless times. On the other hand, there had never been news of a change of dynasty in the Heaven Wasteland province. It was rumored that the first person, the lord of the Heaven Wasteland province, was the person who had lived the longest in the savage world. There were also rumors that the other 8 county lords had never seen the lord of the Heaven Wasteland province. The trivial matters of the Heaven Wasteland province were all handled by the son of the lord of the Heaven Wasteland province, Yi Wentian. However, at this moment, the Heaven Wasteland province was surrounded by 7 counties. The 7 counties had joined forces with thousands of tribes to surround the former so tightly that not even a drop of water could trickle through. The murderous aura almost covered the world. Above Heaven Wasteland City, countless people guarding the city focused their attention as they stared solemnly at the bottom of the city. There were many people with intimidating auras there, especially the dozen or so figures on the dozen or so ferocious beasts that were leading them. Just a single breath was enough to freeze the air. "Ying Luo, I'll give your Heaven Wasteland province another 30 minutes. A man in black stood on a bat-like wild beast at the bottom of the city wall. The man in black was filled with a heart-palpitating power. The man in black looked straight at a woman on the city wall and said coldly, "If you don't hand over that ye brat, we'll attack the city and leave no one alive in your heaven wasteland province." "That's right." Beside him, an old man bathed in black mist shouted, "Your heaven wasteland province may be strong, but it's not strong enough to resist the combined strength of our 7 counties." His voice reverberated throughout the world. At this moment, there was a graceful woman in purple on the city wall. She bit her lips as she watched all of this with an ugly expression. She was the most beloved granddaughter of the Lord of the Heaven Wasteland Province, Yi Ingluo. She was extremely talented and had reached the venerable Berserker realm at the age of 20. She was in charge of the coalition army of the 7 counties. Hearing the threat from below, Yi Ingluo pursed her lips and said to an old man behind her, "You guys guard here. If there are any changes, immediately inform me." "Eldest miss, don't worry." The person nodded. Only then did Yi Ingluo turn around and leave. Heaven Wasteland Province. The atmosphere in a large hall in the city was tense. Countless people's gazes were locked onto the figure at the top. It was a middle-aged man. His face was dignified without being angry, and his eyes were sharp. However, there was deep worry between his brows. This person was the only son of the Sky Demon Country's lord, Yi Wentian Yufeng. One of the experts present couldn't help but say, "Lord Yi, now that 7 counties are pressing down on us, what should we do? You need to make a decision soon." "Yeah." Another person stood up and said hesitantly, "Right now, many of our subordinates are panicking. If it wasn't for us suppressing them, I'm afraid the consequences would be unimaginable. However, we can't keep dragging on like this. In my opinion, we should hand over that kid." A gray-robed old man in the crowd said with a sinister expression, "Our heaven wasteland country alone is not a match for the coalition army of the 7 counties. It is also said that aside from the 3 dead country lords and the Sky Demon Country Lord Wei Yundi, the other 4 country lords are all present." Yi Yufeng had a worried frown on his face as he faced everyone's comment. From time to time, he would look at the ancestral shrine because that was where his father was in closed-door training. At this moment, a series of rapid footsteps could be heard, and Yi Ingluo quickly walked in. "The people outside have given the order to give us one more incense stick of time. If we don't hand over that guy after that time is up, they will launch a large-scale attack." The moment these words came out, the entire hall exploded. Many of the people who spoke before became anxious. "Lord Yi, this matter concerns our life and death. Please make a decision quickly." Yi Yufeng's expression changed slightly, and he couldn't help but clasp his hands toward the ancestral shrine. "Father, what should we do now? Please tell us." After he finished speaking, he didn't have much hope because his father was in closed-door training all year round and didn't see him even once every few decades. The only reason his father came out of closed-door training recently was because that kid named Yi appeared at Heaven Wasteland City. Under everyone's nervous gazes, the door of the ancestral shrine slowly opened and an old figure slowly walked out. "Everyone who likes the devilish nanny in the city. Devilish nanny in the city." Chapter 1286. It was an old man. His hair was all white and his body was extremely old. It was as if every step he took was extremely difficult. However, it was precisely his appearance that caused the extremely clamorous hall to instantly quiet down. Everyone, including Yi Yufeng, looked at the old man with respect. The old man was like a stabilizing force in their hearts. Because the old man was the lord of the sky desolate province, Yi Wentian. The old man was staggering, but everyone felt that his movement technique was extremely profound. 1 second he was 1,000 meters away, and the next second he was within reach. "Grandpa!" Yi Ingluo immediately went up to greet him. Yi Wentian stood still and looked at everyone in the hall. No one dared to look him in the eye. His gaze finally locked onto Yi Yufeng. After a few seconds, he slowly opened his mouth and said one word. "Fight! Fight!" An incomparably simple word rang out from his mouth. It was as if it possessed an extremely great demonic power, causing everyone to be shocked again and again. Fight! This meant that the Sky Desolate Province would be able to fight against the coalition army of 7 counties. Yi Yufeng's pupils shrank and he gasped. Dad, is it worth it for that brat? His surname is Yi. Yi Wentian's lips moved. His eyes seemed to be able to see through people's hearts. Feng Er? Are you afraid? Yi Yufeng's heart trembled. He wanted to speak but stopped. The men of the Yi family are the descendants of the Dongli Emperor. Yi Wentian's words were powerful. Why would the men of the Yi family be afraid of death? Yi Yingluo was infected by this spirit. Her face turned red and she clenched her fist. Fight! Yi Yufeng couldn't help but bitterly smile. After taking a deep breath, he slowly said, Then let's fight! The moment he said this, someone in the hall angrily said, Princess, are you all crazy? My Sky Demon country becoming enemies with 7 counties is like hitting a stone with an egg. Forgive me, but my Li Hua tribe can't play with you anymore. After saying this, that person was about to leave. Yi Wentian's cloudy eyes looked at him. With just one glance, that person's body exploded into a bloody mist. Dead silence, the hall was dead silent. Yi Wentian's ancient voice rang out in every corner of the palace. Who else wants to retreat? No one dared to speak again. In an instant, everyone fell to one knee, their voices shaking the heavens. Fight, fight to the death. All of you, follow me. When the city is breached, it will be the day of our deaths. Yi Yufeng let out a long roar and took the lead to walk out of the main hall. Yi Yingluo followed closely behind him. Everyone was affected by his imposing manner and also walked out. Yi Wentian, who remained where he was, took a deep look at the ancestral shrine. A hint of anticipation flashed across his murky eyes. Little friend, today, my Yi clan will sacrifice our lives to protect you. I only hope that our choice was not wrong. Over there was a white-robed youth with a sword-like body. He was facing a sword steel that was dripping with blood and comprehending it with his eyes closed. The sword steel contained monstrous sword qi. With that, Yi Wentian closed his eyes and murmured, Dongli Imperial Lord. Back then, before you died, you asked us to escape to the taboo ocean to take refuge. 10,000 years have passed, and your unfilial descendant Wentian has been thinking of ways to extend his lifespan for 10,000 years, all because he wanted to wait for the arrival of the person you prophesied. You said that person's surname is Yi. You said that person can break the curse of darkness. You said that person can lead us out of the sea of suffering, and you asked me to hand over the sword steel you left for him to comprehend. I only hope that our choice today will not be wrong. Suddenly, Yi Wentian opened his eyes again. With a flash of his figure, he stepped on the void and turned into a gust of wind. On the city wall, Yi Yufeng arrived with Yi Yingluo and the others. Below, the Lord of Skywood County said loudly, Yi Yufeng, have you made up your mind? Our patience is limited. There's no need to consider. Without waiting for Yi Yufeng to speak, Yi Wentian's old voice came from afar. Lord of Skywood County, this old man has been in seclusion for countless years. Today, I would like to learn from you juniors. The next moment, Yi Wentian's figure landed on the city wall. Yi Wentian. Below, the Lord of Skywood County's eyes narrowed. You old man, you're not dead. Attack! The Lord of Skywater County roared, with a blue bead in his mouth. As his voice faded, monstrous waves rolled over from afar, like a tsunami. Yi Wentian frowned. Sky water bead! Boom! The Lord of Skythunder County took out a purple bead, which rose into the sky and pierced through the clouds. In the blink of an eye, it caused the wind and clouds to change. Kacha, a red bead appeared above the Lord of Skywood County's head. Under everyone's gaze, countless towering ancient trees and vines suddenly sprouted from the ground. Even the indestructible city walls were pierced through by the thick and solid trees. The golden bead in the Lord of Skygold County's hand blossomed with thousands of rays of divine light. In an instant, all the weapons in the hands of the city guards were sucked into the bead. The numerous experts of Tianhuang City, who were prepared to fight to the death, had never seen such a terrifying scene. In an instant, their fighting spirit disappeared, leaving only despair on their faces. Sky water bead, sky thunder bead, sky wood bead, sky gold bead. Yi Wentian's lips moved slightly, revealing endless bitterness in his smile. You really think highly of me, to actually use 4 spirit beads. The next moment, he opened his mouth and spat out a black bead. It then turned into a huge black hole that hovered above his head. Heavenly desolate bead! At that moment, the gazes of the Lord of Skywater County and the other 3 froze. The 9 Wildlands counties each had a county guarding spirit bead, and today, they had all revealed 5 of them. Old fool Yi, even with the heavenly desolate bead in hand, you are still no match for us. The Lord of Sky Thunder County sneered, before activating the Sky Thunder bead above his head with all his might. A terrifying pressure immediately surged and pressed down on Yi Wentian. The Skywood County and the other 2 also activated it with all their might. Rumble! In an instant, 4 unparalleled pressures attacked Yi Wentian. Yi Wentian's face paled, and he could not help but vomit blood. Bang! The heavenly desolate bead above his head shattered on the spot. The Lord of Skygold County could not help but laugh when he saw this. Ha ha ha, your heavenly desolate bead has shattered. Let's see how you stop us today. Is my Yi family really going to be destroyed today? Yi Wentian's face was filled with despair. And at that moment, under everyone's gazes, a beam of sword chi suddenly shot into the sky from within Tianhuang Province, like a giant pillar of light piercing through the sky. If you want to destroy the Yi family, you'll have to ask the sword in my hand first. As a cold voice rang out, a white-clothed figure swept over from within Tianhuang Province like a sword light. The figure had a handsome face and was dressed in snow-white clothes, as if he had crossed the river of time to arrive. P.S. Sorry for the long wait for the 5th chapter. Today's update has been completed. I've kept my promise. The flawless chapter of Monster Nanny in the City will continue to be updated on the mobile game bar. There will be no advertisements on the site, so please bookmark and recommend the mobile game bar. Everyone who likes Monster Nanny in the City, please bookmark Monster Nanny in the City. Chapter 1287. The world was silent. At that moment, all eyes in the world were focused on the figure that looked like a young sword immortal. Only the young man's white clothes fluttered in the wind. He was a peerless talent, but his face was slightly pale. Everything in the world paled in comparison to him. His appearance caused countless swords and weapons to tremble violently, as if they were about to leave their hands. On the city wall, Yingluo stared at the white-robed figure in a daze, her beautiful eyes filled with splendor. That kid actually dared to show himself? The eyes of the Skywood County Lord and the others flashed coldly. Before this, the 8 county lords had joined forces to deal with him. They had used the 9 spiritual pearls together to injure him. Even so, among the 9 of them, the lords of Skywind County, Skyearth County, and Skyfire County had been killed by him. With such talent, if they didn't completely kill him, he would definitely become their nightmare in the future. This was also the reason why they did not hesitate to join forces to suppress the Heaven Wasteland province and force Yi Wentian to hand over this child. At that moment Yi Wentian, who had already given up all hope, couldn't help but say, "Little friend, you're already injured, you can't. I'll only use 3 swords." A calm voice came out of Yi Wushuang's mouth. "If I can't kill you guys in 3 strikes, I'll go with you guys." As soon as these words were spoken, an uproar immediately arose in the silent world. Against the combined forces of the 4 commanderies, he only used 3 strikes? He even said that if he couldn't kill anyone with his 3 swords, he would willingly leave with the 4 prefectural lords? After all, the 4 county lords were the pinnacle existences in the wildland. Coupled with the spiritual pearl in their hands, who could possibly kill them? "All of you back off," Yi Wuxiang glanced at Yi Wentian, Yi Yingluo, and the rest who were ready to fight to the death. The crowd abruptly retreated. Yi Wentian's lips quivered, as if he were hesitating. However, in the end, he sighed and stepped off to the side. In an instant, the white-robed figure was the only one left on the city wall. The white-robed figure looked at the 4 county lords below the city wall. Space seemed to have solidified. It was frightening. The 4 county lords coldly snorted. With a step, they stepped into the void and triggered a phenomenon. Ignorant child. The leader of the Sky Thunder County Lord sneered and said, "If you were at your peak, we might be a little afraid of you. But last time, you were already seriously injured. This time, you still dare to boast that you want to kill us with 3 strikes? If you know what's good for you," the Skywood County Lord coldly said, "you should have fallen to the ground earlier and bowed to us. Perhaps we would have considered leaving your corpse intact." Yi Wuxiang closed his eyes slowly as if he did not hear anything. He seemed to be sensing something. "You're still putting on an act even when you're about to die." The Lord of Tianshui County was so angry that he laughed. In the next moment, the wind started to move in the seemingly frozen space. At the same time, a supreme aura that surpassed all swords suddenly erupted from Yi Wuxiang's body. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. At that moment, countless sword-type weapons in the world began to tremble and hum. Even the swords in the hands of the 4 county lords were no exception. Clang, clang, clang. Countless sword-type weapons vibrated more and more violently. Some people held onto their weapons tightly, but they realized that the weapons in their hands had been forced out of their hands uncontrollably. Under everyone's shocked gazes, countless swords stabbed into the ground and tilted slightly in Yi Wuxiang's direction, as if they were worshipping him. "What's going on?" The Skygold County Lord's expression changed drastically. This was because even the swords of the 4 of them had left their hands uncontrollably and stabbed into the ground, worshipping Yi Wuxiang. As far as the eye could see, the ground was filled with swords. It was like a huge forest of swords, causing one's scalp to go numb. Worship. 10,000 swords worship. Shocking, absolutely shocking. In an instant, the world that was originally filled with killing intent suddenly froze. 10,000 swords worship. Extreme shock and surprise appeared on Yi Wentian's old face. This is the 10,000 swords worship. He comprehended the sword tablet left behind by the Eastli Imperial Lord. Back then, before Yi Dongli died, he asked his descendants to escape to this forbidden ocean to seek refuge. At the same time, he gave them a sword tablet. The sword tablet was something that Yi Dongli had found when he was roaming the void. From the beginning to the end, he had been unable to comprehend it. Unexpectedly, Yi Wuxiang had comprehended it today. Quickly stop him. The Sky Thunder County Lord's expression finally changed. His body moved, and he immediately flew towards Yi Wuxiang. At that moment, an incomparably calm voice came from Yi Wuxiang's mouth. "Who should I kill first?" He slowly shifted his cold gaze onto the Sky Thunder County Lord. "You'll be the first to be killed." The Sky Thunder County Lord's figure stopped abruptly, and his entire body uncontrollably erupted with a strong sense of danger. Without another word, he turned around and wanted to return. At the same time, an unyielding sword intent covered everything in the sky, faintly resonating with the swords that filled the sky. The terrifying sword Dao Will was accompanied by a sword hum that would not stop until death, shaking the galaxy. Swoosh! The moment Yi Wuxiang finished speaking, a white light suddenly appeared in the sky like a bolt from the blue. The white light struck heaven and earth. All the colors paled under this white light. The white light separated heaven and earth, and then split the void into 2. The Sky Thunder County Lord's body did not move at all. His eyes were lifeless as he looked at the white-clothed figure in the distance. Bleck. Suddenly, a blood stain that was as thick as a needle and thread appeared on his neck. Then, an endless amount of blood spurted out. Plop! Under everyone's gazes, his head slowly drooped, and his body fell heavily to the ground. The Sky Thunder County Lord was dead. Even the heavenly lightning pearl that was known as the treasure of the wilderness that floated above his head had a faint crack on it. At that moment, the world fell into a deathly silence. Countless people's eyes were trembling. It was too fast. The entire process was so fast that no one could react, let alone save the Sky Thunder County Lord. Most importantly, under that terrifying sword intent, no one would be able to make a move. Brother Sky Thunder. At that moment, the eyes of the Skywood County, Skywater County, and Skygold County Lords erupted with intense disbelief. He had killed the Sky Thunder County Lord with a single strike, and that was under the premise that he had a treasure like the heavenly lightning pearl to protect him. If it were the three of them, they would not be able to do it. The three of them could not help but look at the white-clothed figure in the sky, only to see that the latter's face was getting paler. Yi Wuxiang looked straight at the three of them. Next, which one of you will die? His injuries seemed to have worsened. The Sky Gold County Lord stared at the former. Then, as if he had thought of something, he suddenly said, "Gentlemen, this brat seems to have paid a huge price to execute that sword strike just now. He definitely won't be able to execute a second sword strike." Chapter 1288. As soon as he finished speaking, the Lord of Skywood County and the Lord of Skywater County could not help but look up. They immediately realized that Yi Wuxiang's face was as pale as a sheet. His body was faintly unstable, as if he was at the end of his rope. "That's right." The Lord of Skywater County narrowed his eyes, and a cold glint flickered in them. "That strike just now killed Brother Tianlei. If he could use such a method easily, we wouldn't have been able to escape unscathed last time. This brat is deliberately tricking us. He's just trying to make us retreat." The Lord of Skywood County immediately sneered. "Do you really think we're that easy to deceive? Let's attack together. We must kill this brat on the spot." The Lord of Skygold County took a deep breath in, and the Skygold pearl above his head stirred. It immediately erupted with terrifying golden energy, almost turning the void golden. "Kill!" At that moment, the three county lords joined forces and charged at Yi Wuxiang. 3 heavenly pearls circled above their heads, as if they wanted to sink this world. Second strike, all swords vanish. Yi Wuxiang's expression did not change. Whoosh, wind blew, and countless sword shadows appeared in the air. These sword shadows seemed to be illusory, and they did not seem to have any offensive power. There were more and more sword shadows. In the end, thousands of sword shadows traversed the world, shaking the void and buzzing. What's going on? Why can't I feel any power from these sword shadows? It's as if they don't exist? Countless experts who were paying attention to this scene could not help but frown, their eyes filled with confusion. Even the Lord of Skywasteland County, Yi Wentian, was no exception. However, in the next moment, Yi Wuxiang's white clothes suddenly bulged. At the same time, a sword intent that shot into the sky erupted from his body, as if it was connected to the distant immortal world. Buzz, buzz, buzz in the sky, the sword shadows that had no offensive power at all in the eyes of the crowd suddenly erupted with terrifying sword chi. Immediately after, the sword shadows that filled the sky suddenly disappeared. Ding, ding, ding. However, in that instant, the three of them felt a formless wind blow against their protective heavenly jewels. All of a sudden, the sound of metal clashing rang out in the air, and the 3 heavenly jewels protecting the three of them began to tremble, as if they were unable to bear the weight. "What is this?" The Skygold County Lord and the other 2 paled in fright. Sword intent. The Skywood region's people seemed to think of something, and their expressions changed greatly. This child has merged his sword intent into the void, reaching the point where his sword chi can transform into nothingness. Not good, retreat. The Lord of Tianshui County screamed and activated the Tianshui bead above his head to protect himself. Then, he frantically retreated. What terrified him was that no matter where he retreated, the wind would blow, and the sword intent that had fused with the void would attack wherever he went. All swords vanish. When Yuentian, who was watching from the side, saw this scene, his heart was filled with boundless shock. Fusing the sword will into your body, such a technique is indeed worthy of being called void of all swords. It's really too terrifying. The world was completely silent. Everyone widened their eyes and held their breaths as they stared fixedly at the scene. Could Yi Wuxiang kill the three of them by himself? Break! At that moment, the Skygold County Lord and the other two roared repeatedly. They frantically activated the heavenly jewels above their heads, their eyes filled with sharpness. Boom! Boom! 3 terrifying beams of energy erupted from the 3 heavenly jewels, turning into huge beams of light that pierced through heaven and earth. They almost annihilated the void, as if the sky had collapsed. Blurred. At that moment, the Skygold County Lord and the other two spat out a mouthful of blood. Their faces instantly became extremely dispirited, and it was clear that they had been severely injured. If one looked closely, they would notice that there was a faint crack on the 3 heavenly jewels above their head. Yi Wuxiang's body trembled, and a trace of blood immediately flowed from the corner of his mouth. I still have the 3rd sword. Once the 3rd sword is unleashed, all gods and ghosts will be destroyed. It's a pity that I don't have the strength to unleash the 3rd sword. The light in his eyes gradually dimmed, and then he fell to the ground like a meteor. We've lost. Yuentian and the rest were in despair. Under Yi Wuxiang's terrifying sword Dao, the Skygold County Lord and the other two managed to survive by relying on the heavenly jewels. Ah! Following an incomparably complacent laugh, the Skywater County Lord spat out blood and laughed out loud. Brat, looks like Brother Skygold was right. In the end, you still can't unleash the 3rd sword. What a pity! The Skywood County Lord also laughed out loud. If you could unleash the 3rd sword, you would definitely be able to break through our heavenly jewels and kill us. Brat, go to hell. The Skygold County Lord forcefully endured his injuries and activated the Skygold jewels above his head. With killing intent on his face, he charged towards Yi Wuxiang, who was falling rapidly. Oh no! At that moment Yuentian's expression changed. With a flash of his body, he charged towards the Skygold County Lord, as if he wanted to stop him. Old man Yi, you want to save him? At the same time, the Skywood County Lord and the other two attacked together, surrounding Yuentian. Scram! Yuentian's voice was like thunder. Boom! An intense explosion erupted. The Skywater County Lord held on to Yuentian tightly and laughed sternly. The more you try to protect that brat, the more we won't let you do as you wish. We'll make you watch as that brat dies. We'll make you watch as your Skywasteland County is destroyed. Hearing this, Yuentian's eyes almost popped out of their socket. Eastly Imperial Lord, is the hope that you brought to my Yi family going to be destroyed today? I can't accept this. He roared at the sky. On the city wall, Yingluo's beautiful eyes were filled with despair as she looked at the white-clothed youth who was falling at an extremely fast speed. Is he going to die? She clenched her fists tightly, and a hint of heartache and powerlessness flashed across her clear eyes. Swish! Just as the Skygold County Lord's terrifying attack was about to land on Yi Wuxiang, an extremely sharp sound of wind being torn apart exploded in the air. As space distorted, a thin figure shot over like lightning. Then, he firmly reached out to hug the white-clothed youth, who was falling at an extremely fast speed. Boom! Boom! The Skygold County Lord's terrifying attack instantly landed on the thin figure, instantly erupting with an earth-shaking energy wave that destroyed everything. However, the thin figure was like a mountain, unmoving. When the terrifying storm dissipated, all the gazes in the world landed on the thin figure. That's, following the tsunami-like exclamations, only then did everyone realize that the thin figure was a man. The man carried Yi Wuxiang in his arms. His body was not strong, but he blocked all the attacks for the young man in his arms. Chapter 1289. Whoosh! Looking at the thin figure that had suddenly appeared, uproars rose and fell in succession in that moment. The other party had actually blocked all of the Skygold County Lord's terrifying attack. The most shocking thing was that he was completely unharmed. At the same time, the expressions of the Skygold County Lord and the other two changed as they stared fixedly at the thin figure. Who is he? Yi Wentian was overjoyed, but he was even more puzzled. Why did he accept that young friend? At that moment, the seemingly unconscious young man in Yi Chen's arms moved slightly. He opened his eyes and looked at the man before him. At the next moment, his body stiffened, and his almost dim eyes suddenly brightened, like a shooting star blooming. Even with his indifferent personality, an indescribable bitterness surged into his heart at this moment. "Big brother," an extremely short word came out of his mouth, but it was dragged out with an extremely long and excited tremble. He had wanted to see the person before him countless times. For this reason, he had killed his way into the Tianfeng Sea area alone, wanting to kill the Great Li Dynasty's emperor, Shang Wudao, to avenge the former. For this reason, he did not hesitate to become enemies with the Great Yin Dynasty's emperor Xianming. Yi Chen lowered his head slightly and looked at the pale young man in his arms. Endless guilt surged in his eyes. "Wu Shuang, big brother is here." A smile appeared on the young man's pale face. This time, Wu Shuang doesn't want to be separated from big brother. "All right, I promise you." Yi Chen suppressed the bitterness and guilt in his heart and nodded heavily. Then, he carried him and slowly landed on the ground. Boom! At the same time, a peerless bird tore through the air and descended with the black ape. Giant Ape King? The moment they saw the giant black ape, a faint commotion broke out from the originally frozen crowd. Clearly, they recognized the giant black ape's identity. Even the Skygold County Lord and the other two were no exception. "Take care of my brother. If he loses even a strand of hair, I'll destroy your soul." Yi Chen handed Wu Shuang to the black ape slowly after injecting a trace of true origin energy into his body. His voice revealed endless coldness. "Yes, master." The black ape accepted it respectfully. However, as soon as the two of them finished speaking, waves of shock were stirred up. This person was Yi Wushuang's elder brother? If Yi Wushuang was already so terrifying, how powerful would his brother be? This person is little friend Ye's older brother? Yi Wentian was stunned when he heard this. At that moment, countless people felt their scalps go numb. The giant black ape's words shocked them. One of the 5 saints of the Sky Demon Country, the giant Ape King, actually called him master? Moreover, his words and actions were so respectful, and he considered himself a servant. "Who are you?" At that moment, the Skygold Countess and the other two stared intently at Yi Chen. Their instincts told them that Yi Chen was not as simple as he seemed. Yi Chen turned around slowly as the three of them watched. His initially calm face turned extremely terrifying. "You deserve to die for hurting my brother." After he finished speaking, he took a step forward, directly heading towards the Sky Gold County Lord and the other two. Killing intent filled the entire space. "Impudent." The Skywood County Lord's expression changed. "Since you are that brat's elder brother, you won't be able to live either." Boom! He suddenly activated the heavenly wood orb above his head. Instantly, countless giant trees appeared in the air. They were like divine pillars that reached the sky as they pressed down on Yi Chen. "What can a mere wood spirit orb do to me?" Yi Chen's gaze turned cold. Then, he activated his true origin energy and formed a seal with both hands. He grabbed at the heavenly wood orb through the air. Under the Skywood County Lord's terrified gaze, his heavenly wood orb broke free from his control and shot toward Yi Chen. In the end, it landed in Yi Chen's hand. Blurred. The Skywood County Lord's mind was damaged. He could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. When he looked at Yi Chen again, his gaze was filled with deep shock. You, that was the wilderness treasure, the heavenly wood orb, and it had been forcefully taken away by the other party. You're just a piece of trash who relied on the wood spirit orb. Now that you don't have such a treasure, what's the difference between you and an ant? Yi Chen waved his sleeve. A rumble reverberated, and a terrifying pressure swept out. It whistled toward the former. Boom! The Skywood County Lord screamed as his body collapsed on the spot. His soul had just escaped from his body when it was crushed by the terrifying pressure. At that moment, the entire world suddenly fell into a deathly silence. He killed the Skywood County Lord with a raise of his hand. Where did this powerhouse come from? So powerful! Yinglua was dumbfounded. Yi Wentian was stunned at first, but then he seemed to have thought of something. A look of ecstasy appeared on his old face. He's from the ancient, desolate realm. Seeing that the Skywood County Lord had been killed on the spot, the expressions of the Skygold County Lord and the Tianshui County Lord changed drastically. The Tianshui County Lord cried out in shock, "Friend, let's talk this out. Go to hell and talk to the King of Hell." As he spoke, Yi Chen raised his hand and pointed. With a single finger, heaven and earth rumbled. A huge finger that almost covered heaven and earth shattered the void and landed on the Skywood County Lord's body with a whistling sound. "No!" the Tianshui County Lord roared. He did not even have time to refine the heavenly water orb and was crushed on the spot. In an instant, he had killed 2 county lords. Boom! The Skygold County Lord looked as if he had seen a ghost. He was completely scared out of his wit. Without hesitation, he activated the heavenly gold orb and tried to escape. "Where are you going?" Yi Chen grabbed the heavenly water orb through the air and turned around abruptly. He instantly leaped 3,000 meters away and appeared before the Sky Thunder County Lord. The Skygold County Lord's body stiffened as cold sweat flowed uncontrollably. "Sir, why do you have to go to such extremes?" He was truly frightened by Yi Chen's methods. Be it the Skywood County Lord or the Tianshui County Lord, they were both formidable figures who stood at the peak of the Forbidden Sea. However, they were as weak as ants before this person. "When you injured my brother and wanted to kill him, have you ever thought that you can't go to such extremes?" Yi Chen pressed forward step by step. His eyes were as cold as 1,000-year-old ice. "No matter what you say today, you won't be able to escape death. Since that's the case, let's die together." Madness suddenly flashed through the Skygold County Lord's eyes. Then, he frantically activated the heavenly gold orb. A terrifying aura surged out from the heavenly gold orb, as if it was about to explode. Faced with such a situation, Yi Chen did not use any fancy trick. He only extended his hand and clenched it at the former. Ah! The Skygold County Lord did not even have the time to make the heavenly gold orb self-destruct. He screamed and turned into a bloody mist that filled the sky. In the blink of an eye, he had killed 3 county lords. At that moment, the heavens and the earth were dead silent. Everyone stared at the thin figure in a daze. Chapter 1290. At this moment, Tianhuang City was deathly silent. The 4 county lords had joined forces and gathered over 1,000,000 troops to suppress Tianhuang County. Before this, almost no one was optimistic about the outcome of Tianhuang County. However, the real outcome was that all 4 county lords had died, and 3 of them had been killed by the young man who had suddenly arrived. How could everyone not be flabbergasted by this? Looking at the thin figure standing proudly in the air, the shock in everyone's hearts was so intense that they could not calm down for a long time. Who exactly is this person? With such heaven-defying strength, he shouldn't be so unknown in the wasteland. The most terrified were the countless tribes that had followed the 4 county lord. They looked at Yi Chen as if they were in awe of a god, afraid that he would slaughter them all. The giant black ape and the giant ape demon below looked at Yi Chen with even more respect. One had to know that the 3 county lords who had died in Yi Chen's hands were not weaker than the Sky Demon County Lord. However, they were as weak as ants in Yi Chen's hands. This person must be from the ancient, desolate realm. Yi Wentian stared at Yi Chen and gulped. Only someone from the ancient desolate realm can do this. Just as he was thinking, he suddenly realized that Yi Chen's cold gaze had landed on him. His entire body stiffened, as if an invisible hand had grabbed his neck, and he was unable to breathe. Yi Chen looked at Yi Wentian quietly as a monstrous cold gleam surged in his eyes. Who injured my brother? A senior. Yi Wentian's heart trembled. He forcefully suppressed the fear in his heart and said, Little friend, you was injured by the 8 county lords a while ago. Just as he was about to explain, he was interrupted by a cold voice. Why can't you tell good from bad? Yi Chen looked over and saw a graceful woman in black glaring at him with her phoenix-like eyes wide open. What are you looking at? I'm talking about you. Yingluo was furious. She puffed her cheeks and said angrily, If not for my grandfather's help, your brother probably wouldn't have been able to hold on until you arrived. Before she could finish, Yi Wentian stopped her at the right time. Yingluo, don't be rude to senior, big brother. At this time, Wu Shuang's weak voice came from the ground. Don't misunderstand old Mr. Yi, it has nothing to do with him. Yi Chen moved and landed next to him immediately. He held his hand tightly while golden flames flickered in his eyes. Several seconds later, he couldn't help but frown and say, There is a trace of strange devouring power within your body. Was it injured by Immortal Palace? The main culprit that caused Yi Wushuang's injuries was actually the devouring power. Yi Wushuang's body stiffened. Then, he raised his eyes and stared at him. Brother, you know about the Immortal Palace as well? After he finished speaking, he nodded slightly. Back then, when Di Xianku attacked me, Sword Exalt had no choice but to help me, which immediately alerted the Immortal Palace. Later on, when I attacked the Immortal Palace with my sword, I was sent here. He paused for a moment before continuing. Then, because I killed the foster son of the Skyfire County Lord, the 8 county lords joined forces to deal with me. Immortal Palace. Yi Chen could not help but narrow his eyes when he heard that. Then, he said with a cold smile, Recuperate first. We'll return to the ancient desolate realm and settle the score with this so-called Immortal Palace. But my injury. Yi Wushuang hesitated. Don't worry. Yi Chen chuckled softly and said, I'll help you get rid of the devouring power in your body. Moreover, you can use this opportunity to break through and rebuild. At this point, a pearl that flickered with golden light slowly appeared in his hand. It was the sky gold pearl of the Sky Gold County Lord. This is the Xian Pin Golden Pearl. A smile appeared at the corner of Yi Chen's lips. If the goddess of grains doesn't die, it's called Xian Pin. The gate of Xian Pin is called the root of heaven and earth. This item must be a natural spirit pearl born in this small world. It contains the purest golden qi. It can be used to refine a treasure body for you. It's called the Xian Pin Indestructible Body. Before he left Barbarian Village, he had given the old elder and the others a cultivation method. Although it was also called the Xian Pin Indestructible Body, it was a process of accumulation step by step, and it was extremely difficult. If he had the Xian Pin Golden Pearl, he could directly refine the Xian Pin Indestructible Body in one go. If the goddess of grains didn't die, it would be called Xian Pin. From this, one could see how powerful the Xian Pin Indestructible Body was. Speaking of which, the Sky Gold County Lord was stupid. Although he knew it was a treasure, he did not know its effects, nor did he know how to refine it. He was stupid enough to use it as a treasure to fight. Otherwise, Yi Chen would not have taken it so easily. After saying that, he slowly turned around and looked at Yi Wentian. Old Mr. Yi, may I borrow a quiet room? Yi Wentian nodded repeatedly, of course. With the death of the 4 county lords, the million-strong allied army collapsed without a fight. Such a shocking change immediately spread throughout the wildland. When they found out that the person who caused all of this was a young man, the entire wildlands was shocked. Sky Demon County, Barbarian Village. The old elder looked at the news in his hand in shock. The Sky Demon County Lord and the other 4 lords are dead? Beside him, Ching Ching and the others wanted to say something but hesitated. Grandpa, I heard that they were all killed by a white-haired young man. Why does this person look so much like Big Brother Yi? The old elder's body immediately trembled. He could not help but take a deep breath when he thought about the many things Yi Chen had asked before he left. I was right. Lord Yi is not an ordinary person. At this moment, the Tianhuang County was filled with great joy. Before this, they were almost in despair when they faced the alliance of the 4 counties. They thought that the result would be the destruction of the city and the deaths of their people. However, when they were at their most desperate, hope arrived with the appearance of that thin young figure. It was that young man who killed the 3 county lords with a wave of his hand, and the million-strong allied army collapsed without a fight. After this incident, they finally believed that there might really be gods in this world. In the inner city of the Tianhuang County, outside a quiet mansion, Yi Yingluo, who had taken off her military uniform, stood in the breeze. At this moment, her phoenix eyes could not help but look into the mansion in front of her. There was a trace of a terrifying aura there. Although it was only a trace, it made it difficult for her to breathe. After a while, she raised her head to look at the old man beside her and said, "Grandpa, where do you think that senior came from? Why have I never heard of him before? Why have I never seen him before?" He came from the ancient, desolate world. Yi Wentian took a deep breath and suppressed his excitement. He enunciated each word clearly. My Yi family might be able to return to our homeland. Ancient, desolate world? Yi Yingluo was stunned. Then, she looked at the former in confusion. "Grandpa, what is that place? Why have I never heard you mention it before?" "This is the secret of my Yi family for nearly 10,000 years. Yi Wentian's lips moved slightly. At this moment, the door of the mansion slowly opened, and a thin figure walked out. Chapter 1291. In the main hall of the Yi residence, Yi Wentian dismissed all the outsiders, leaving only his granddaughter, Yi Yingluo, and son, Yi Yufeng. He then bowed to Yi Chen. "Thank you, senior, for helping the Yi family. Old Mr. Yi, please rise." Yi Chen waved his sleeve and gestured for the 3 of them to stand up. He said while smiling, "I should be the one thanking you guys for this." Yi Yingluo was right. If not for the Yi family's help, Yi Wushuang would not have been able to wait for him to arrive. After Yi Wentian stood up, he asked worriedly, "Senior, may I know how that little friend Yi is? His injuries have recovered. He's currently in closed-door cultivation. He'll definitely come out in 3 to 7 days." Yi Chen chuckled softly and said, "My surname is Yi, and my name is Chen. I have the same surname as Old Master Yi. You can just call me by my name." As soon as he said that, the 3 of them were shocked. Yi Wentian looked at him in disbelief. "Senior, your surname is Yi too?" He seemed to have thought of something after saying that. He suddenly clasped his fists at Yi Chen. "May I ask if Senior is from the ancient desolate realm?" As his voice fell, the entire hall suddenly became silent. Yi Yingluo and Yi Yufeng both had blank expressions on their faces. Only Yi Wentian looked at Yi Chen calmly. Yi Chen nodded lightly and said when he met his gaze, "That's right. I'm indeed from the ancient, desolate realm." "Senior, do you know Yi Dongli?" Yi Wentian asked again. Yi Chen's eyes flashed imperceptibly when he said that. "I do, but it was after he died." "What? The Eastly Emperor is dead?" Yi Wentian's body trembled violently when he heard that, as if he had been struck by lightning. Then, he fell heavily to the ground. Yi Yingluo subconsciously wanted to help him up. "Grandpa? Don't help me!" Unexpectedly, Yi Wentian suddenly burst into tears and kowtowed heavily. "Ancestor Dongli, you've finally died, Ancestor?" Yi Chen's eyes focused. He looked at him in surprise again. "You're Yi Dongli's descendant?" Not only him, but even Yi Yingluo and Yi Yufeng were shocked, as if this was the first time they had heard of this matter. Under everyone's gaze, Yi Wentian's tears streamed down his face as he said, "That's right, This old man is indeed a descendant of the Eastly Emperor Lord, and the Yi clan of the Wildlands is also a descendant of the Eastly Emperor Lord. Father, what's going on? Yi Yufeng couldn't help but ask. And who is the Eastly Sovereign Lord? Yi Wentian looked up at the father and daughter and said slowly, Yufeng, the Yi clan didn't come from this world. We came from the ancient barren world, and the ancestor of the Yi clan is Yi Dongli. Back then, the Dongli Emperor conquered the ancient barren world alone and brought glory to the Yi family. But later, the Dongli ancestor suddenly asked us to move to this barren land. His aged face was filled with sorrow. My Yi clan has also followed the instructions of ancestor Dongli and lived in the wildlands for nearly 10,000 years. At this point, he could not help but cry. At that time, I had just passed the ceremony of adulthood. All these years, I had been thinking about returning to the ancient barren world to follow ancestor Dongli. Who would have thought that ancestor Dongli would? Yi Yingluo and her father felt their minds shake when they heard this. It was as if they could not accept this reality for a moment. Yi Chen watched the scene quietly. There were ripples on his calm face. If Yi Dongli was really the ancestor of the Yi family, wouldn't that mean that the three of them were related to him by blood? Yi Wentian took a deep breath in and stared at Yi Chen. May I ask, Senior, why did the ancestor die? Yi Chen said in a deep voice, I once heard from the head of the self-learning palace, Kuyunzi, that Yi Dongli died at the hands of the immortal palace. Kuyunzi. Yi Wentian was stunned at first when he heard that. Then, he snorted coldly and said, When I was young, I heard that this person had a close relationship with the ancestor. However, the two of them fell out for some reason. The ancestor's death is definitely related to him. As for this immortal palace, I've also heard that this existence surpasses the secular world. Even ancestor Dongli is extremely afraid of it. As he said that, he suddenly knelt before Yi Chen. Senior, please help my family return to the ancient barren world. 10,000 years ago, when the Yi family migrated, Yi Dongli had left a prophecy that someone with the surname Yi would lead the Yi family out of the Forbidden Sea and back to the ancient barren world 10,000 years later. Initially, Yi Wentian suspected that it was Yi Wushuang. However, he no longer had any doubts after Yi Chen appeared. Yi Chen frowned slightly and said, To be honest, I don't know how to leave this place at the moment. Although Ing said that he would be able to find a way to leave the Forbidden Sea if he found the ghost ship was now related to the end of the darkness. That was why he did not say anything. Yi Wentian's expression changed a few times when he heard that. Then, he seemed to have thought of something and said to Yi Chen, I might have a way. Please follow me, Senior. He walked out of the hall first after saying that. Yi Chen followed immediately. In the Yi family's ancestral temple, a huge statue stood in the middle of the solemn and huge square. The statue seemed to be a man who exuded a dignified aura without being angry. No one dared to look at him directly. Yi Dongli? Yi Chen looked at the statue and realized that the former was very similar to the Yi Dongli he had seen before, both in appearance and temperament. Senior. Yi Wentian pointed at the statue's eyes and said in a deep voice, Before we left back then, the Eastly Emperor gave this to our Yi family. He said that he wanted us to give it to the fated person. He could not help but glance at Yi Chen. This secret has been guarded by our Yi family for 10,000 years. It seems like this fated person is Senior. Eyeballs? Yi Chen squinted and leaped. He landed on the statue's shoulder directly and looked at the latter's eyes quietly. In the statue's eyes, there was a pair of fluorescent stones that were glowing with treasure. The fluorescent stones were only the size of eggs, and there seemed to be a mysterious liquid flowing in them. Barrier stone. At that moment Yi Chen's expression changed. To be precise, he was shocked. It was because the pair of eyeballs in Yi Dongli's statue was one of the main materials for refining the astrolabe, the barrier stone. The so-called fixed star plate was a rare object used to determine spatial coordinate. With this object, he could find spatial nodes and use them to travel through space. The effect of this item was much stronger than the teleportation formation. However, the materials needed to refine the astrolabe were extremely rare, especially the barrier stone. It was rare even in the resource-rich cultivation world. Therefore, Yi Chen had never thought of refining the astrolabe. He did not expect to encounter the barrier stone here. Moreover, he had obtained it from Yi Dongli's statue. Thinking to this point, he could not help but have a huge change in his speculation about Yi Dongli's identity. Yi Dongli, who exactly are you? Why do you even have something as rare as the barrier stone? Moreover, you prepared it in advance. You predicted that I would come and specially left it for the two of you to pass it to me. P.S. There are only 2 chapters today. The epidemic has been lifted. I'm on a business trip. Please understand. Chapter 1292. Several days passed, but Yi Wuxuang was still in closed-door cultivation. No one from the Yi family dared to disturb them. However, every time Yi Wentian and the others looked towards the secret chamber where the former was cultivating in, their eyes were filled with shock. Sword shadows, the sky was filled with sword shadows that enveloped the entire secret chamber. Even the countless flowers and trees outside the Yi family mansion were faintly releasing traces of sword intent. Yi Chen was waiting. With a treasure like the mystic beauty golden bead, once Wuxuang came out of closed-door cultivation, he would no longer have any weaknesses. On the 5th day, Yi Wentian walked in quickly. Mr. Yi, all the materials you want are here. Dark cold stone, spirit horn sand, sulfur flame branch. Yi Chen immersed his divine consciousness into the storage ring that Yi Wentian passed to him. He could not help but reveal joy in his eyes. After obtaining the transcending stone from Yi Dongli's statue's eye, he had the idea of refining a fixed astrolabe. Thus, he recorded the rest of the materials in a jade slip for Yi Wentian to collect. As long as he could make the time-fixing plate, he would be able to return to the ancient barren world. Yi Wentian didn't have much hope at first, but he didn't expect that there would be so many precious materials in the Forbidden Ocean. Yi Wentian managed to gather all the materials needed to refine the astrolabe. With this, he could begin to refine the fixed astrolabe. Thinking of this, he could not help but look at Yi Wentian and sincerely said, "Elder Yi, thank you for your help. Mr. Yi, you're too kind." Yi Wentian could not help but shake his head. "If it wasn't for you, my Yi family of Heaven Wasteland Province would have been destroyed. Furthermore, you are the person in Ancestor Dong Li's prophecy. My Yi family will do our best to help you." Yi Dongli, Yi Chen secretly frowned. Just as he was about to say something, the door to the hall was suddenly pushed open, and Ying walked in. Seeing this, Yi Wentian immediately retreated. Ying glanced at Yi Chen expressionlessly and went straight to the point. "When are you going to the end of the darkness with me?" However, Yi Chen shook his head. Ying's face darkened. Surprised, he asked, "Don't you want to go back to the ancient barren world? Don't forget, the ghost ship is at the end of the darkness." "Of course I want to return to the ancient barren world." Yi Chen chuckled softly and looked at him wryly. "However, I've found a better way to leave now. As for the end of the darkness, I don't want to get involved." Before this, he planned to explore the end of the darkness with Ngong, but now? He didn't need it anymore. "You." Ying's eyes turned cold immediately. Clearly, she did not expect Yi Chen to find a better way. "You don't have to try to persuade me." Yi Chen looked at him steadily. "If I'm not mistaken, your avatar is suppressed at the end of the darkness, right? You're trying to get me to help you rescue your avatar." As soon as this was said, Ying's eyes suddenly flashed imperceptibly, but he still said calmly, "It seems that you still don't believe me. When did you ever trust me?" Yi Chen was not mad at all. Instead, he said with a wry smile, "So, go ahead if you want to go to the end of the darkness." Yi Chen did not know what was at the end of the darkness, but he could guess that Ying's avatar must be suppressed there. How could a place that could suppress the avatar of an ancient emperor be an ordinary place? He was not afraid, But now that he had gathered all the materials for the time-fixing compass, the most important thing was to return to the ancient barren world to see his parents and daughter as soon as possible. There was no need for him to cause unnecessary trouble. Yi Chen could not control Ing. After all, he was the evil body of an ancient emperor. How could he be willing to be under someone else? Since that was the case, the only thing Yi Chen could do was not to interfere in his matters. Mad Southern Yi, you've missed a great opportunity. Ing looked at him deeply. Since you don't need it, then I'll go get it myself. I just hope that you won't regret it in the future. He turned around and left after saying that. Yi Chen watched him leave. He narrowed his eyes and said, "No matter how great the opportunity is, it's too insignificant in front of my family and finding Yuhan and her daughter as soon as possible." That day, Yi Chen ordered the Yi family not to disturb him. Then, he entered the Yi family's ancestral temple and began closed-door cultivation. The giant black ape, Yi Wentian, and the rest sent many powerhouses to guard the ancestral temple. In the quiet room, Yi Chen sat cross-legged and stared at the 7 pearls in his hand. They were the treasures of the 7 county lords when they were alive. There's indeed a big secret in the Forbidden Ocean. Yi Chen's eyes flickered. A mere cage actually gave birth to 9 innate spirit pearls. I can use any one of them to cultivate a divinity or devour it to increase my cultivation base. For example, the wood spirit pearl of the Skywood County Lord. It contains extremely terrifying wood attribute spiritual energy. He fixed his gaze on the wood spirit pearl. If I absorb it, I can recover the true origin energy in my body. I can even take another step forward and step into the intermediate stage soul formation stage. There's also this void flame spirit pearl. It can refine the unique divinity of the master of the fire territory in the cultivation world, burning heaven and melting earth hand. There's also this origin thunder spirit pearl. It can refine the cultivation world's thunder spirit sex ultimate divinity, heavenly thunder god destruction palm. Yi Chen glanced at the 8 pearls one by one. Without any hesitation, he opened his mouth and sucked. He absorbed the wood spirit pearl into his body and began refining it. Time passed bit by bit. On the 3rd day of Yi Chen's closed-door cultivation, a huge change happened in the Forbidden Ocean. The Yin Mountain, which was known as the Forbidden Land of the Forbidden Ocean, experienced a shocking upheaval. Someone saw a figure that looked like an ancient demon lord rising into the sky from the Yin Mountain. The figure roared, causing the mountains and rivers of the Forbidden Ocean to collapse and the sea to be destroyed. Countless stone statues, which were situated in various corners, flew through the air. They were all rushing towards Yin Mountain. Ha ha ha, I've escaped. I, the hegemon sword venerable, sealed my body and 6 senses and turned into a stone statue. After 10,000 years of silence, I've finally been reborn today. Kuyunzi, Immortal Palace, just you wait. If I don't destroy you in this life, I, the immortal heavenly venerable, swear that I'm not human. May I ask the immortals in the heavens, who dares to come to this world? Kill, kill, kill. Kill Jixia Academy. Kill that hypocrite Kuyunzi, and destroy the immortal palace. Countless thunderous voices reverberated in the sky above the Forbidden Ocean at almost every moment, causing countless people to tremble. Tianhuang Province, in the main hall. 6 stone statues have been resurrected in the Sky Demon County, 4 in the Skywood County, and 7 in the Skygold County. Yi Yingluo and Yi Yufeng reported the shocking news with a horrified expression. Yi Wentian's expression changed again and again. What exactly happened? Why did so many stone statues resurrect in one night? Father, my subordinates have come to report. Yi Yufeng stammered. There are also 4 stone statues in my Tianhuang province. They are actually talking through the air, and there are faint signs of resurrection. At this moment, the entire Yi family's main hall shook violently. Then, an ear-piercing whistling sound suddenly resounded in the sky above the Tianhuang province. Lord of the Tianhuang province, Quickly come out and meet us. End of this chapter. Chapter 1293. The voice was like thunder from the 9 heavens, rumbling in every corner of heaven desolate city, causing a commotion in the entire city. Yi Wentian, who was in the great hall of the Yi clan, immediately leapt out and rushed towards the source of the voice. Under countless gazes, there were several silhouettes standing in the sky above the sky desolation city with terrifying pressure being emitted from them. Who are these people? Why have they suddenly descended upon my heaven desolate city? So strong, I feel that even Princess Yi is not a match for any one of them. Countless people in heaven desolate city stared at the figures in the air with faces full of shock and unease. The next moment, Yi Wentian's figure appeared in the air, immediately cupping his fists towards the figures and said, "I am the Lord of Heaven Desolate Province, Yi Wentian. May I know what orders seniors have for me?" "You are the Lord of Heaven Desolate Province?" A skinny old man stood out from among the figures in the sky, looking Yi Wentian up and down with a sinister gaze. "We have been in a deep sleep for countless years and now need to recover. Hurry up and hand over the various elixirs and medicines of your heaven desolate province." These words caused Yi Wentian's expression to change slightly before he politely said, "May I know what kind of elixirs and medicines seniors require?" "It's very simple." The skinny old man grinned. "Give me a dozen sets of peerless medicines and 8 or 10 bottles of peerless heavenly pills." Yi Wentian could not help but smile bitterly when he heard this. "Senior, you think too highly of my heaven desolate province. We do not have what you want, only some inner cores of savage beasts, bastard." The skinny old man's eyes narrowed, before he suddenly slammed his palm down. Terrifying Yuan Qi undulated, instantly transforming into a giant palm that forcefully flattened the huge residence beneath Yi Wentian's feet. "If you continue to be so long-winded, this will be your fate." The entire world suddenly fell deathly silent. Flattening a residence with a single palm. Cold sweat continuously appeared on Yi Wentian's forehead. Just as he was about to speak, an enraged voice came from behind him. "You've gone too far. Even if you kill us, we won't be able to get what you want." Yi Wentian looked over and saw his granddaughter, Yi Yingluo, walking out with a face full of anger. He couldn't help but berate, "Yingluo, you can't do this." The next moment, the skinny old man stretched out his hand towards Yi Yingluo. "Little girl, you do have some good looks. I can use you as a cultivation furnace." At that moment, Yi Yingluo suddenly found that she couldn't move. She could only watch in despair as the large hand reached towards her. "Senior!" Yi Wentian's expression changed drastically, and he immediately lashed out in an attempt to stop them. Scram! The thin old man opened his mouth and shouted like thunder. "Pooh!" Merely the word scram caused Yi Wentian to spit out a mouthful of blood. His mind instantly suffered a heavy blow, and his face became extremely dispirited. He roared angrily, and just as he was about to risk his life, a cold voice suddenly rang out in the void. "A few old farts who have been silent for tens of thousands of years dare to behave atrociously in front of me?" Boom! As the voice rang out, the hand that the thin old man had used to grab Yi Yingluo exploded into a mist of blood. This sudden scene instantly caused everyone to be shocked. "Who?" The thin old man grunted, and his sinister eyes scanned the area as he shouted, "Who dares to hurt me? Show yourself if you have the ability." Even the people behind him were no exception. "It's that young friend Yi." Out of everyone present, only Yi Wentian was stunned. Then, he looked towards a certain quiet room in the Yi family mansion with a face full of joy. In an instant, everyone was shocked to find that the sky was filled with endless sword qi. A huge vortex appeared above the thin old man's head. The vortex was formed from countless tiny sword qi, and it emitted a frightening power. Boom! Under everyone's gaze, a huge golden sword that was hundreds of meters long slashed towards the thin old man with the power of thunder. Rumble! As the huge sword slashed down, lightning exploded in the sky. countless tiny sword chi sealed off an area of thousands of meters around the thin old man. At that moment, everyone's gazes froze. The only thing left in their eyes was the sword that seemed to be splitting the sky and earth. At that moment, the thin old man's body suddenly froze. His eyes widened as he stared at the huge sword that was descending towards him. He had forgotten to resist. There was only helplessness. It was as if everything else was incomparably insignificant. The huge sword slashed down from the top of the thin old man's head like a knife cutting through tofu. There was no resistance at all. Bang! The thin old man's body suddenly split open and he died on the spot. Everyone was dumbfounded at the sight of this. Even the experts who came with the skinny old man had fear in their eyes. Then, under everyone's gaze, a white-robed figure appeared in the sky above the Yi family mansion. His eyes were as vast as the stars, and the surface of his body flickered with golden light. An infinite sword realm appeared behind him, as if he was a god that had walked out of heaven. With his appearance, heaven and earth paled. Yingluo stared blankly at the white-clothed young man, and her heart could not help but beat violently. Yi Wentian was the first to react. Then, he looked at Yi Wushuang excitedly. "Little friend Yi, you've broken through?" Yi Wushuang nodded lightly. His deep eyes then looked at the few old men standing at the side in a daze. The infinite sword realm behind him swept out. Pft, pft, pft. The four figures split into two one after another. There were no screams. There was only silence. Seeing this scene, the dozen or so figures watching from afar were horrified, as if they had seen a ghost. Those were 5 Emperor's Throne powerhouses. Yi Wushuang looked into the distance and said indifferently, "Within 10 breaths, if there are any of you within a 500-kilometer radius, I'll kill you without mercy." The moment that was said, the dozen or so hidden powerhouses were instantly enraged. An old man in a Taoist robe could not help but say, "Sir, we didn't offend you. Aren't you being too overbearing by expelling us?" The white-clothed young man frowned and said, "You'll disturb my big brother. Be ****. Someone flew into a rage. "Even if you have some ability, you don't have to be so arrogant, right? Do you really think you're invincible?" Yi Wushuang glanced at him, and a sword chi shot out from the void. Before that person could finish speaking, he was split into 2. Kill him. Not only did this thunderous method not intimidate the remaining people, but it also aroused the anger and ferocity in their hearts. Before they sealed themselves, they were powerhouses of the current era. When had they ever been ignored like this? Boom, boom, boom. At that moment, over 10 terrifying auras erupted and charged at Yi Wushuang like lightning. And it was at that moment, a huge palm print suddenly appeared in the air. End of this chapter. Chapter 1294. The palm print covered a radius of 3,000 meters like the hand of a fire god. As soon as it appeared, it melted the void. Following that was an extremely indifferent voice that sounded like the might of the heavens, burning heaven and melting earth. Palm. Boom. As the giant palm descended, the space within a radius of 3,000 meters turned into a fiery domain. A palm print that was 3,000 meters in size appeared on the ground. The interior of the palm print was charred black, and not a single blade of grass remained. As for the dozen or so people, they no longer existed. The world suddenly fell into a dead silence. Then, under everyone's gazes, a thin young man slowly walked out of the Yi family's ancestral temple. The young man's white hair fluttered in all directions, and he looked like a true immortal that had descended to the mortal world. At that moment, a smile appeared on Yi Wushuang's originally indifferent face. "Big brother." Yi Wentian and the rest bowed respectfully. "Greetings, Senior Yi." He had become stronger again. Senior Yi had become stronger again. That was the only thought in Yi Wentian and the rest's minds. That palm strike earlier had truly shocked them too much. Yi Chen nodded lightly. After walking to Yi Wushuang's side, he sized him up and said, "Not bad. You're comparable to a mid-stage god transformation cultivator now." After saying that, he looked at Yi Wentian. What happened during the few days I was in closed-door cultivation? Yi Wentian quickly told him everything that had happened. Countless stone statues revived? Yi Chen's eyes flashed imperceptibly when he heard that. He then squinted and said, could it be Ying's doing? Only Ying could cause such a commotion. However, what exactly did he do to revive all the stone statues in the Forbidden Ocean? At this moment, he seemed to have sensed something, and his gaze suddenly looked into Tianhuang City. Why are you guys still hiding? Do you need me to invite you guys out personally? Swish. As soon as he finished speaking, 3 old figures shot out from the Tianhuang City. It was a monk, a Taoist, and an old woman. The expressions of Yi Wentian and the rest changed drastically when they saw the 3 of them. It was because the 3 of them looked exactly the same as the 3 stone statues in Tianhuang City. The 3 of them landed next to Yi Chen and bowed heavily. Greetings, Senior. We have no ill intentions. Please don't misunderstand. The 3 of them had been hiding in the dark, so they saw everything that happened earlier clearly. At that moment, they were extremely respectful of Yi Chen. Yi Chen questioned, who are you guys? The leading elder cupped his fists and didn't dare to hide anything. Senior, I am the founder of the North Sea Dragon Subduing Hall in the ancient barren world, Celestial Venerable North. Behind me are the founder of the Pure World Zen sect, Buddhist Master Bao Xian, and the founder of the Tai Ching Palace, Fairy Yuqing. Hearing that, Yi Chen's expression eased up. Whether it was the North Sea Dragon Subduing Hall or the Tai Ching Palace, they were related to him and not considered enemies. He threw out many questions in succession. Why did you come to this taboo ocean? Why did he turn into a stone statue? Why are they all awake now? An hour later, in the main hall of the Yi clan, as Celestial Venerable North and the other 2 narrated, Yi Chen finally understood many secrets of the past 10,000 years. It turned out that 10,000 years ago, Celestial Venerable North and the others refused to be enslaved by the Immortal Palace and tried to defy the heavens to change their fate. However, they were suppressed by the Immortal Palace and were finally suppressed in this taboo ocean. The taboo ocean was a barren land after all, equivalent to a cage. The Immortal Palace sent all those who refused to obey it into the barren land. Celestial Venerable North and the others could not cultivate, so they faced the loss of power. They lived and died on their own. At that time, many emperors' throne stage cultivators thought of a way to turn themselves into stone statues. This way they could extend their lifespans and preserve their strength, hoping that one day they could wake up. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but stare at Celestial Venerable North. So, the reason why you all woke up was because you sensed a great change in the taboo ocean. The vitality began to recover and the darkness retreated, so you were forced to wake up? That's right. Celestial Venerable North said respectfully. If it wasn't for that, I'm afraid we would still be in a deep sleep. As for those who were killed by Senior, they were no different from us. Most of them are vicious and evil people. Fairy Yuqing of the Tai Ching Palace spoke at the right time. They have always been at odds with us. Now that they have died in Senior's hands, it can be considered justice and retribution. Celestial Venerable North sighed. Those dozen or so emperors' throne powerhouses were the ancestors of the various sects in the ancient desolate world. Now that they had finally awakened, they had died in Yi Chen's hands. It was indeed Ying's doing. Yi Chen narrowed his eyes and asked again, now that I plan to return to the ancient desolate world, I wonder if everyone plans to follow me back? The eyes of Celestial Venerable North and the others lit up. Of course, the Immortal Palace suppressed us here and made us suffer. When we return, we will not rest until we overthrow the Immortal Palace. Amitabha Zen Master Bao Xian of the Pure World Zen sect pressed his palms together and said, Benefactor Yi, we still have a few good friends from the various sects in the ancient desolate world. Now that they have awakened, they might be rushing here. Fairy Yuqing could not help but ask, Senior, what's the situation in the ancient desolate world now? Is the orthodoxy that we left behind still there? Your great purity palace has been destroyed. Yi Chen glanced at her and told her everything he knew. These people were all at the emperor's throne stage. If they were willing to return with him, they would be a great help. My great purity palace has been destroyed. Fairy Yuqing's expression was dazed, and her eyes were filled with sorrow. However, I have to thank you, Senior, for avenging my great purity palace. The next morning on Yin Mountain, Yi Chen stood in the air with his hands behind his back. He looked down at everything on the mountain, but his brows were furrowed. Ying was gone. This guy caused such a huge commotion, but he disappeared. Along with him were many awakened stone statues. No one knew if he had followed Ying. At that moment, there were more than 10 powerful figures standing below Yi Chen. Their auras were monstrous. If there were people from the ancient desolate world present, they would be shocked to discover that these people were all at the Emperor's throne stage. Among them were the ancestors of the North Sea Dragon Subduing Hall, the Great Purity Palace, the Hu family of Xianzhou, and the first founding emperor of the major dynasties. There was even the entire Yi family. Yi Wushuang stood next to Yi Chen and looked down at the dozen figures with powerful auras. He could not help but say while smiling, "Big brother, we'll definitely change the ancient desolate world when we return this time." Yi Chen's heart was still burning. He lifted his head to look at Yi Wentian. "Old Yi, we'll go first. Guard the teleportation formation here. Once I arrive at the ancient desolate world, I'll build a teleportation formation. By then you can cross space. Senior Yi, be careful," Yi Wentian said. Yi Chen took one last look at the forbidden ocean. Then, he waved his sleeve. A gigantic wheel that looked like a star charged into the clouds. As soon as the gigantic wheel rose into the air, it grew to 3,000 meters in size. Countless starlight surged on it, and it was incomparably vast. It was the star-fixing plate. "Let's go." Yi Chen gave the order and took the lead to step onto the star-fixing compass. Behind him, more than 10 silhouettes followed. "Mom, Dad, Patriarch, my dear daughter, I'm back." As the star-fixing plate shone with great starlight, golden flames danced in Yi Chen's calm eyes. "And Yuhan, I'll kill my way into the immortal palace this time and bring you and your son back. This time, no one can stop our family from reuniting." P.S. Chapter 3, I'm back from my business trip. I'll start updating tomorrow. The following plot will be very exciting. Please give me tickets. End of this chapter. Chapter 1295. Tianfeng Sea Area, one of the 5 great regions of the ancient desolate realm. A violent storm suddenly swept across the vast sea. It was as if the sky had collapsed, causing countless sea beasts to flee in all directions. In the tall void, a huge rift suddenly appeared out of thin air. An extremely ferocious aura seeped out from the rift. Then, as the huge crack slowly wriggled, a thin figure walked out from it. The figure wore a green robe and had a head of white hair that flowed like a waterfall. His eyes were resplendent, and his appearance was handsome. The terrifying spatial storm raged behind him, but it was unable to move his body at all. Tianfeng Sea Area? Yi Chen looked around disdainfully. He could not help but sigh. "I've been away from the ancient desolate realm for half a month. I wonder how the patriarchs and the rest are doing." With that, he waved his sleeve, and the huge astrolabe beneath his feet disappeared. Then, he stepped out of the rift completely. Behind him, a white-clothed figure also slowly walked out of the rift. It was a white-clothed youth. When his indifferent eyes landed on the surroundings, there were complicated emotions flowing in them. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. After the white-clothed youth walked out, a dozen figures with terrifying auras shot out from the rift, revealing the faces of the North Sea Hall Master and the others. More than 13,000 years, endless emotion and excitement appeared on the heavenly venerable North Sea's old face. After more than 13,000 years, I've finally returned to the ancient desolate realm. I've thought about it more than once. The founder of the Great Purity Palace, Fairy Yuching cried tears of joy, we might have to spend our lives in the Forbidden Sea and never return to the ancient desolate realm, I, the great desolate poison master, am back. This is the smell of home, it's changed too much. I still remember that this was the place where the terrifying Sea clan lived, but now everything has changed. It was not just the two of them. Even the other 15 Emperor's throne powerhouses had tears in their eyes. Yi Chen watched this scene quietly and did not interrupt. In fact, he could understand these people's feelings. After all, being a living dead in the taboo ocean for tens of thousands of years was a kind of torture for anyone. He took a step forward and flew towards the land according to the impression he had in his mind. The North Sea Heavenly Sovereign and the others quickly followed. Yi Chen's expression was extremely grim along the way. Now, this vast land was no longer as magnificent and beautiful as it was before. All that was left was a scene of desolation. Whether it was the sea or the land, corpses could be seen everywhere. A huge sea tribe was annihilated. Countless corpses floated on the surface of the sea, dyeing the river red. The land, on the other hand, was frozen for thousands of miles. Countless mountains, rivers, and plants were frozen forever. How did it become like this? Yi Chen's expression turned grimmer and grimmer when he saw that. What exactly happened? It actually affected the mortals of the mortal world. Not only him, but the others also noticed that something was wrong. The scorching sun was rolling in the sky, but the ground was covered in ice and snow. Everything did not conform to the logic of the 4 seasons. The North Sea Heavenly Sovereign suddenly stopped in a valley and grabbed a handful of snow from the ground. He felt the chill that could freeze one's heart. It's the aura of a spell. What a strange snow. Fairy Yuching sucked in a cold breath and said, even though we are in this snowflake, we still feel a chill down our spines. The others nodded repeatedly. They were all at the Emperor's throne stage, and had long since abstained from eating. They were not afraid of the wind and rain, yet they were affected by the snow. Yi Chen's eyes focused. Then, he grabbed a handful of snow from afar and held it in his hand. Then, he looked at the falling snow. That's right, this snow is indeed a spell. His eyes flashed imperceptibly as he said, someone must have used a divinity to cause this snow disaster. That's why the northern region is in such a terrible state. The snowflakes contained extreme killing intent. A single snowflake was not much, but when tens of thousands of snowflakes gathered together, the killing intent was earth-shattering. Who exactly is it that can display such a heaven-defying technique? The North Sea Heavenly Sovereign's expression was very solemn. When we were alive, we've never seen an existence with such ability. I'm afraid even the Eastly Emperor can't do it. Immortal Palace. Yi Chen and Yi Wushuang spoke in unison. As soon as that was said, the expressions of the North Sea Heavenly Sovereign and the rest changed, and then they came to a realization. Amitabha, the Immortal Palace is tyrannical. Zen Master Bao Xian of the West Earth Pure Zen sect held the prayer beads in his hand and said with compassion, such an inhumane spell almost destroys everything. Mortals are innocent, yet they have to suffer such a calamity. I wonder how the original Great Li dynasty was like. Yi Chen narrowed his eyes. Then, his body flashed and he traversed thousands of kilometers in an instant. He teleported toward the Great Li dynasty in the northern region. The Great Li dynasty, the giant that once suppressed the Tianfeng Sea area, was now only a pile of trash. Countless buildings had turned into ice sculptures, and countless guards who were still on duty had also turned into ice sculptures. Yi Chen landed above the palace and spread his divine consciousness. He took in the entire palace, but he did not see a single living person. The North Sea Heavenly Sovereign shook his head and said, judging from the traces at the scene, this man-made disaster came very suddenly. It was so sudden that these people did not even have time to react. Amitabha. Zen Master Bao Xian was compassionate. At that moment, Yi Chen's gaze suddenly paused. Then, he teleported toward the palace's artisan workshop. In the secret underground tunnel of the artisan workshop, it was extremely hot. It was as if one was in magma. However, there were two extremely weak figures in it. They were a man and a woman. The young man was only 17 or 18 years old, while the woman was about 30 or 40 years old. She was curled up at the entrance of the secret tunnel. Their faces were haggard, and their lips were chapped. They seemed to be severely dehydrated. At the same time, they were swaying, as if they were suffering from the cold and heat. Xiao Nan, hold on. You can't sleep. The woman leaning against the wall tried her best to open her eyes. She bit her chapped lips and looked at the unconscious young man on the ground. Xiao Nan, you can't sleep. Once you fall asleep, you won't wake up. Hold on a little longer. When the snow melts, we can go out. Mother will bring you to eat delicious food. No matter how hard the woman called out, the young man did not move at all. It was as if he was dead. At that moment, the secret tunnel suddenly shook. Then, a thin young man stepped into the secret tunnel. The woman who was about to faint seemed to have seen her savior. Sir, did father send you to save us? Yi Chen walked over and carried the woman after seeing the situation in the secret tunnel. I'm here to save you. The woman's trembling voice was almost begging, Sir, save my son first. I can still hold on. My son can't die. Please, end of this chapter. Chapter 1296. Inside the palace, beside a huge bonfire, Heavenly Venerable Bei Yun and the rest looked at the mother and son, who were fighting around the bonfire with sympathy. Madame Zhu, are you saying that a powerhouse forced the Great Li dynasty to submit, but the Great Li dynasty was unwilling, so it snowed heavily? Yi Chen channeled a trace of true origin energy into the mother and son's bodies. He then gave them a medicinal pill and asked slowly. The mother and son were the wife and son of the Great Li dynasty's craftsman workshop deacon. After the snow disaster, the craftsman workshop deacon hid his wife and son in the craftsman workshop's secret tunnel. The craftsman workshop was connected to the underground fire, so the temperature was relatively high, so the mother and son were lucky to survive. Yes, sir. Color gradually returned to the middle-aged woman's face. Her lips trembled as she said, the ruler of the Great Yin Imperial Dynasty, Di Xuanqing, issued a 1,000,000-kill order to deal with Celestial Master Ye's friend. He wants all forces in the ancient barren world to capture him. A shocking murderous aura swept out from Yi Chen's body as soon as he said that. It was as if the temperature between heaven and earth had dropped by dozens of degrees. Di Xianming? Yi Chen narrowed his eyes and said, Didn't I kill him? Why did he revive so strangely? Everyone says that Di Xianming isn't the real Di Xianming. Someone deliberately changed into Di Xuanming's appearance and took control of the Great Yin Imperial Dynasty. The middle-aged woman looked at Yi Chen in disbelief as soon as she finished speaking. Then, she knelt heavily and said, Why, you're immortal Master Yi? Yi Chen helped her up. What happened then? He knew the Patriarch of Hell's strength. His daughter and the others would not be in danger under his protection. The only thing he was worried about was that the Patriarch of Hell would become the ancient desolate realm's enemy. When everyone attacked, the Patriarch of Hell would be alone, and the situation would not be good. After that, many forces were unwilling, including the Dali dynasty. Yi Futian said. The middle-aged woman smiled bitterly. Because everyone said that you're the descendant of the Eastly Emperor, no one wanted to make things difficult for your friend. Yi Chen killed his way into Jixia Academy, killed the schoolmaster, Kuyunzi, destroyed Jixia Academy, and started a shocking battle with Yi Dongli. Almost everyone in the ancient desolate realm knew what had happened. They also knew that Yi Chen was Yi Dongli's descendant. In an instant, countless forces that initially hated Yi Chen had a drastic change in their attitude toward him. All they felt was gratitude and pity. All of this was because Yi Dongli had given countless favors to too many forces when he was alive. Some of the founders of great sects had been taught by Yi Dongli. Some supreme aristocratic families were on the verge of destruction. It was Yi Dongli who saved them. Any force that still existed in the ancient barren world could be said to have received favors from Yi Dongli. Therefore, Yi Dongli's status in the ancient barren world was extremely special. Even after his death, there were still countless peerless giants who cried for him. After so many years, there were still countless people who felt sorry for Yi Dongli. Hearing her words, Heavenly Venerable North Sea and the others looked at Yi Chen in a different light. I didn't expect Lord Yi to be a descendant of the Eastly Emperor Lord. Fairy Yuqing was even more shocked. No wonder Lord Ye's strength is so terrifying at such a young age. Di Xian. Yi Chen's eyes flickered. It seems like this so-called Di Xian must be someone from the Immortal Palace in disguise, the middle-aged woman said with a pale face. Later, Di Xianbing activated the celestial phenomenon spiritual treasure, and all the forces that were unwilling to help were destroyed. What? Heavenly elephant spiritual treasure? The Northern Sea Heavenly Sovereign exclaimed in disbelief. I've heard that this treasure can summon the power of celestial phenomenon. It's no different from summoning the wind and rain, or even summoning heavenly lightning. I've heard of it as well. Buddhist monk Bao Xian's lips moved slightly. It is said that this treasure can absorb the heavenly thunder and store it in it before using it against the enemy. Fairy Yuqing took a deep breath and said, Then the great snow in the heavenly wind sea region must be caused by the Immortal Palace's heavenly elephant spirit treasure. Yi Chen interrupted him, and looked at the middle-aged woman again. Which forces were destroyed? What about the North Sea Dragon subduing hall? My heavenly wind sea region was almost destroyed. The latter was still in shock as she said. The great dynasties of the northern region were also destroyed. Zhongzhou was a little better. Di Xianbing seemed to be a little afraid of existences like the North Sea Dragon subduing hall. He only threatened them not to interfere. Yi Chen's heart sank immediately. He said urgently, What about my friends? Like the Patriarch of Hell and the rest? That Lord Hell is very powerful. The middle-aged woman said intermittently. Di Xianbing once attacked Lord Hell, but he seemed to have returned in defeat. The Patriarch had defeated the people from the Immortal Palace? Yi Chen's brows relaxed immediately. However, he felt that something was amiss. Where is the Patriarch now? Lord Hell seemed to have been injured in the battle with Di Xianbing. Now, he has brought his people to a Huang kingdom in the eastern wilderness. The middle-aged woman clenched her hands and said, However, they're not in a good situation now. It's said that Di Xianbing has used a spiritual treasure against a Huang kingdom. There are even some supreme forces who have chosen to submit to Di Xianbing, surrounding a Huang kingdom so tightly that not even a drop of water can trickle through. She could not help but look at Yi Chen as she said that. Lord Yi, go quickly. This happened 10 days ago. A Huang kingdom will not be able to hold on for long when facing the siege of more than half of the ancient, desolate realm. Boom! Just as she finished speaking, a terrifying baleful aura storm stirred up in the hall again, causing the air to tremble. Thank you, Madame Zhu. Yi Chen retracted the baleful aura in his body and said to the former, I'll never forget your kindness. I'll order someone to send you and your daughter to a safe place. After saying that, he could not help but look at Fairy Yuqing. Leave it to me. Fairy Yuqing took over the topic and said in a deep voice, Lord Yi, after I send them to a safe place, I'll head to the eastern desolate realm to look for you. As soon as he said that, Heavenly Venerable Bei Ming clasped his fists at Yi Chen first. Lord Yi, if you don't mind, I'm willing to lend you a hand. I'm also willing to lend you a hand, Benefactor Yi. For no other reason but because the Eastly Emperor once risked his own cultivation to save the seniors of the Pure World Zen sect. Zen Master Baoxian pressed his palms together. We're willing to lend you a hand, Lord Yi. In an instant, more than 10 Emperor's throne powerhouses unleashed their full cultivation base. Their voices were like thunder that shook people's hearts. Among these people, some were grateful to Yi Chen for bringing them back to the ancient desolate realm, but most of them were indebted to Yi Dongli back then. Alright, thank you, everyone. Yi Chen raised his head and took a deep breath of the cold air in the air. Shocking, killing intent exploded in his deep eyes. This time, I'll make sure that there are no more immortals in the immortal palace. End of this chapter. Chapter 1297. Ancient Barren World, Eastern Barren Territory. The flames of war spread to every corner of the Eastern Barren Territory. Whether it was the ancient Shur family or other forces, they were all destroyed. In the end, they could only hide in the Ahuang Kingdom to survive. Now, the Ahuang Kingdom was no longer the country of women that everyone in the Eastern Barren Territory envied. There was only wind and snow that seemed to freeze the entire country. Snow fell everywhere in the Ahuang Kingdom. The streets were almost covered by the wind and snow. Not a single living person could be seen. Everyone hid in their houses. Even though there were bonfires for warmth, they still shivered and were filled with despair about the future. The heavens wanted to destroy the Ahuang Kingdom. This was the only thought in the minds of almost every citizen of the Ahuang Kingdom. That was why the heavens had specially sent this snow disaster. Even so, the Ahuang Kingdom was much better than other places. At the very least, not many people in the Ahuang Kingdom froze to death during the 10 days when the snow covered the sky. All of this was because there were hundreds of towering pillars of divine fire erected in the Ahuang Kingdom. These hundreds of pillars of divine fire were tens of thousands of meters tall. They were like huge chimneys, constantly emitting heat to the outside world in an attempt to resist the snow disaster. All the citizens of the Ahuang Kingdom remembered one person. They even set up tokens in their homes to worship this person. This person was the Yellow Spring Ancestor. After the snow covered the sky, the Yellow Spring Ancestor mobilized the power of the country to create hundreds of towering pillars of divine fire in the Ahuang Kingdom. It was also these pillars of divine fire that saved countless lives. Ahuang Kingdom, at the peak of the imperial city. Two figures stood in the air, sizing up the Ahuang Kingdom that was protected by the matrix. Their gazes passed through the matrix and looked at the powerful auras outside. One of them, a beautiful woman in a phoenix robe, murmured, "Yellow Spring, do you think we can make it?" Jiang Lei's eyes were full of sorrow. The Ahuang Kingdom had always been in her hand. She didn't expect it to suffer such a great disaster. Even so, she still looked at the black-clothed youth in front of her with affection. Although his face was unruly, he gave her a great sense of security. Thus, it was the person she loved who saved the country and even heavily injured the emissary from the immortal palace. Slap! Just as she was thinking, her buttocks were heavily slapped by a perverted hand, and then she was pulled into the arms of the black-clothed youth in an extremely domineering manner. Caught off guard, Jiang Lei couldn't help but let out a whimper. Then, a snappy voice sounded in her ears. "What? Don't you trust me?" "No." Jiang Lei's beautiful face immediately flushed red. She stared blankly at the black-robed youth's features. "I'm worried about your injuries. My body is very good. I can do it 10 times in one night." The Patriarch of Hell chuckled. As soon as he finished speaking, he seemed to have affected his injuries, and he couldn't help but cough. "Don't lie to me." Jiang Lei seemed to be rebuking him as she looked at him. "For the sake of saving your brother, you took on Kuyunzi's fatal strike, and then you were injured. Afterwards, you fought with Immortal Palace's emissary. Even though the latter escaped after being seriously injured, you weren't much better off. You're such a troublesome woman." Seeing that his pretense had been exposed, the Patriarch of Hell immediately put on a stern face. "If you want to be my woman, you have to listen to me. If I say one thing, you can't say another." As soon as that was said, the world suddenly fell silent. Not long after, Jiang Lei's sobbing could be heard. The Patriarch of Hell was silent for a few seconds before he said seriously, "Don't worry, I'll be fine. I promised Fellow Yi that I would protect his family until he returns. How can I die so easily? What if—" Jiang Lei wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes and said hesitantly, "What if Mr. Yi doesn't come back? After all, that's the Forbidden Sea." "He won't." The Patriarch of Hell grinned and said, "You don't know Fellow Yi. His abilities are beyond your imagination. In fact, even I don't know much about him." As he said that, he could not help but recall the first time he met Yi Chen. At that time, he failed the tribulation and only a wisp of his soul fell to earth. He had no choice but to possess a dog. It was also by chance that he was brought back to the Yi family. It was that night that he found out that Yi Chen was a cultivator. However, Yi Chen was only on intermediate stage spirit assembly at that time. The Patriarch of Hell relied on his identity as a tribulation stage almighty in his previous life to show off to Yi Chen, but Yi Chen countered him. Since then, Yi Chen's growth shocked him. He went from intermediate stage spirit assembly to beginner stage God transformation, and he was ahead of the Patriarch of Hell. The Patriarch of Hell knew very well that he was a tribulation stage almighty in his previous life, but he still could not compare to Yi Chen. It could only prove that Yi Chen had some fortuitous encounter that was beyond his imagination. Just as Jiang Lei was about to say something, she suddenly heard a loud bang. Then, the ground beneath her feet began to tremble violently as if the earth was shaking. "The formation is broken." The Patriarch of Hell narrowed his eyes and said, "Although I guessed that this day would come sooner or later, I didn't expect these people to be so fast. Take care of fellow Ye's family. Leave the rest to me. This is what a man should do." After saying that, his figure flashed, and he instantly teleported thousands of kilometers away, landing on the city wall. At the same time, several figures rushed over from all directions within a Huang kingdom. Among these people were powerhouses from a Huang kingdom, as well as powerhouses from the remaining forces of Eastern Wilderness. An old man with spots on his face looked solemnly at the dragon of murderous aura in the distance. "Fellow Huang Quan, they've launched an attack. What should we do now?" "Just do it." The Patriarch of Hell's expression did not change. A wisp of killing intent that had not been seen for a long time intensified in his eyes. "If you're afraid, you can submit to the Immortal Palace. Perhaps you can save your lives." "Fellow Huang Quan, you're wrong." A9 Revolution Martial Saint Clan Elder from the Shi family smiled bitterly. "Our Shi family has received the favor of the Eastly Emperor, and Qianhan is a close friend of Emperor Yi. How can we surrender?" "That's right." Another powerhouse also stood up and said with a determined expression, "The forces we belong to were all destroyed by the lackeys of the Immortal Palace. Since there's no way out today, why don't we fight to the death? It's enough to drag one of them down with us before we die. We'd rather die than surrender." Boom! 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 Earth-shaking roars rumbled in the capital of a Huang kingdom, as if even the falling snowflakes in the world had stopped. "That's good. If you remember the formation that the Patriarch taught you, you can barely hold back an emperor's throne." The Patriarch of Hell narrowed his eyes and sneered. "As for the remaining emperor's throne lackeys, leave them to me." As his voice fell, more than 20 murderous aura dragons streaked across the sky, approaching from afar. These 20 people all emitted a thick emperor's aura. Chapter 1298. 25. Old Ancestor Yellow Spring fixed his gaze on the 25 people. His calm expression changed. That guy from the Immortal Palace actually sent 25 Emperor's Throne Realm cultivators. He really thinks highly of me. The experts behind him were all shocked beyond belief. Even though they were prepared, they did not expect 25 Emperor's Throne Realm cultivators to descend. This number was almost 3/4 of the peak power in the ancient barren world. There are many unfamiliar faces among them. They seem to be old monsters who are in hibernation from the major forces. The 9 Revolutions Martial Saint from the Shi family sucked in a breath of cold air and said, "Just what benefits did the Immortal Palace give them, to actually make them forget the kindness of Emperor Lord Dongli, and willingly become someone else's lackey to attack us?" More than 20 figures instantly flew 100 zhang away. More than 20 emperors might merge together, causing the world to change color. The leader was an old man with a sword on his back. His entire body was filled with an aura of death, like an old man with one foot in the grave. It's the founder of the Clear Sky Sword Sect, Sword Venerable Clear Sky. The 9 Revolution martial saint from the Sure family's pupils constricted when he saw the newcomer. He said in shock, "Wasn't it rumored that he died a long time ago?" As soon as he finished speaking, the old man with the sword on his back smiled sinisterly. "I didn't expect that after thousands of years, there would still be people who remember this old man. Sword Venerable Clear Sky, you were just a sword boy of the Emperor Lord Dongli back then. If it wasn't for the Emperor Lord Dongli teaching you swordsmanship, how could you be where you are today?" An expert behind old ancestor Yellow Spring couldn't help but say angrily, "Now you've become the lackey of the Immortal Palace and want to attack the descendant of the Emperor Lord Dongli? The Emperor Lord Dongli?" Sword Venerable Clear Sky smiled indifferently. "It's true that he taught me swordsmanship back then, but who told him to become enemies with the Immortal Palace? As the saying goes, a wise man submits to circumstances. It's normal for us to not be on the same boat as him." "You." The person from before was furious. "You're just a piece of trash struggling at death's door." Old ancestor Yellow Spring looked at him quietly and seemed to be disdainful. "If you continue struggling at death's door, you might be able to live for a few more years. But now you dare to become enemies with me. Today next year will be the anniversary of your death. You must be old ancestor Yellow Spring?" Honorable Swordsman Hao Tian sized up old ancestor Yellow Spring and said with a faint smile, "I admit that your strength is unfathomable, and I'm not even your successor. But don't forget that we have more than 20 Emperor's Throne Realm cultivators here today. So what? They're just a bunch of chickens and dogs." Patriarch Yellow Spring's expression did not change. One of the Emperor's throne experts sneered and said, "Old ancestor Yellow Spring, I heard that you were seriously injured by the Lord of the Immortal Palace. I wonder how much fighting strength you have left." Patriarch Yellow Spring said, "You can come and experience it. You don't have to provoke me." The man was so angry that he laughed. "Today, the order we received was not to fight you alone, but to join hands and kill you, attack. And this quickly." Swordsman Haotian let out a fierce cry. He took out a sword of the way, which cut through the 9 heavens, pierced through the world, and slashed at Patriarch Yellow Spring. This scene was extremely terrifying. He waved the sword with one arm, as if he was going to cut down the 9 heavens and destroy all living beings in the world. "Kill!" The other 20 people attacked at the same time. Some swung their spiritual treasures, and some used supreme Dao technique. Rumble! More than 20 Emperor's Throne experts attacked, and the power was so great that it instantly turned the void into powder. "Attack!" Patriarch Yellow Spring also roared and took the initiative to meet Swordsman Haotian. He raised his hand and used the invincible fist seal. "Break! Everyone, fight to the death!" The 9 Revolution martial saint of the Sure family took a deep breath and immediately burned his lifespan. His aura began to rise violently. "Fight to the death!" The others all burned their lifespan. In an instant, a terrifying aura swept out. The 9 Revolution martial saint of the Sure family's hair instantly turned white. Countless wrinkles appeared on his face at a speed visible to the naked eye. He roared, "Form the Netherworld Extinguishing Formation!" Boom! Immediately, 5 people landed beside him and set up an extremely profound and mysterious formation. Their auras instantly merged into one. This was the formation that Patriarch Yellow Spring had taught them earlier. "Kill!" Feeling the surge of power in his body, the 9 Revolution martial saint of the Sure family laughed maniacally. He then charged at an Emperor's Throne expert without fear of death. "Form the formation!" After him, another 9 Revolution martial saint roared and chose to burn his lifespan. Another 5 people landed beside him and formed the Netherworld Extinguishing Formation with him. "Kill!" At this moment, everyone chose to fight with their lives on the line. Boom! Many scales burst out from Patriarch Yellow Spring's body. All the scales opened and a terrifying aura surged out. A faint shadow appeared behind him. The shadow was like a ferocious beast. Its roar shook the mountains and rivers, and an endless amount of ferocious aura burst out. Bang! Swordsman Haotian's left arm was cut off by Patriarch Yellow Spring. As he retreated madly, he looked at Patriarch Yellow Spring in shock. "You're not human!" Demonic aura. He felt an overwhelming demonic aura from Patriarch Yellow Spring's body. Moreover, it was an extremely terrifying demonic aura that did not seem to belong to this world. "Die!" Patriarch Yellow Spring roared and charged at Swordsman Haotian. The ferocious beast behind him was as tall as the sky, and its terrifying ferocious aura shot into the clouds. At the same time, the attacks from the dozen Emperor's Throne experts landed on him. Puff! Patriarch Yellow Spring staggered, and could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Then, the ferocious beast behind him opened its mouth and swallowed the world. Before everyone's eyes, an Emperor's Throne expert was swallowed into its mouth. No one knew if he was dead or alive. "Give up!" Swordsman Haotian laughed and said, "No matter how strong you are no match for us today. No one in this world can save you." As soon as he finished speaking, a huge crack suddenly appeared in the void above everyone's heads. Then, many corpses fell from the crack like rain. "Those are the disciples of ancient God sect. And our sect leader?" Looking at the corpses that fell like rain, the expressions of Swordsman Haotian and the others suddenly became extremely ugly. The corpses belonged to the orthodoxies behind them, but they were all killed and their corpses were thrown down. Swordsman Haotian roared, "Who is it?" The next moment, a huge purple-gold serpent dragon tore through the air, and on its back stood a middle-aged man in a purple-gold robe. Hall Master Biming. Someone recognized him immediately and gritted his teeth. "That's right, it's me." Hall Master Biming stood in the sky with his clothes fluttering. "Before I came, I already destroyed the orthodoxies behind you. Not a single one of them was left alive." End of this chapter. Chapter 1299. As his voice fell, everyone's expression changed. Too ruthless. This meant that they were all alone now. Sword Venerable Haotian's eyes were filled with murderous intent. "North Sea Hall Master, do you want to be our enemy?" "Enemy?" The North Sea Hall Master looked sorrowful. "The Immortal Palace is tyrannical. Today, I represent the North Sea Dragon Subduing Hall in rebellion. Just you alone." Sword Venerable Haotian sneered. "Me too." Then, another man in a dragon robe stepped through the air. "The Great Xia Dynasty is rebelling." Amitba, a five-colored lotus came from the horizon. An old monk put his palms together. "The West Earth Pure Zen sect is rebelling." "The Light Palace is rebelling too." With a crisp sound that sounded like a silver bell, a giant purple-gold gourd appeared in the sea of clouds and struck horizontally. "Immortals in heaven, do you dare to come to this world?" Another ray of sword light cut through the sky, illuminating the sky. An old man appeared. "The Sword Hut is rebelling too." Elder Pan descended. "The Square Tower is rebelling too." "The South Sea Monster Race is rebelling too." "The Sumeru Secret Realm is rebelling too." In just a few breaths, a dozen people descended. They were all Emperor's Throne cultivators. North Sea Dragon Subduing Hall, Great Xia Dynasty, Light Palace, Sword Hut, Square Tower, Black Tortoise Race of the South Sea, Sumeru Secret Realm, Montua Mountain. Looking at the familiar figures, Sword Venerable Haotian's face was extremely gloomy, and it was even twitching. The expressions of the 20 people behind him changed as well. They were all here. The remaining Emperor's Throne cultivators of the ancient barren world were all here. This was unprecedented. This had never happened in the history of the ancient barren world. Even Patriarch Yellow Spring was extremely surprised. These forces had all remained neutral before. He didn't think they would all come to help him today. Good, very good. A moment later, a furious voice came from Sword Venerable Hao Tian. North Sea Dragon Subduing Hall, are you really going to rebel? Aren't you afraid of the Immortal Palace's punishment? Immortal Palace. The Lord sneered. They are immortals? They're just a bunch of cultivators who are stronger than us and don't care about their lives. Do they deserve to be called immortals? The leader of the Sword Hut's voice was like thunder. Even if they really are immortals, we will kill them today and open up a new world for the ancient barren world. Feng Taizong, you are a remnant of the Sword Hut. Sword Sovereign Hao Tian's eyes were sinister as he stared at him. Your Sword Hut has always been enemies with Immortal Palace. After all these years, you have been hiding here and there like a mouse. Today you actually dare show yourself. Old man Hao Tian, you have learned Dong Li Imperial Lord's sword principle, but you are ungrateful. Today, I want to have a taste of your swordsmanship. Feng Taizong's sword light was like thunder. So what if you join us today? Venerable swordsman Hao Tian was so angry that he laughed. We have 25 Emperor's Throne Realm cultivators, while your side only has 16. You can't change the situation. Cut the crap. You will die today. Feng Taizong, the master of the Sword Hut, let out a soft shout. He closed his 5 fingers and turned them into a peerless divine sword. He took the lead and slashed towards Sword Venerable Haotian. Do it. At the same time, North Yun Temple Master and the others looked at each other and then attacked together, shaking the sky. A total of 40 Emperor's Throne Realm cultivators fought. The mountains and rivers shook and the sky trembled. The power was earth-shattering. Fellow son, I will hold them back. While Venerable Swordsman Hao Tian was fighting with Feng Taizong, he shouted, You will join forces and kill Ancestor Netherworld first. All right. The one called Fellow Son was a peerless demon lord. Then, he turned into a giant silver tiger and pounced towards Ancestor Netherworld. He slammed his claw down. Before the claw landed, a mountain on the ground exploded. Ancestor Netherworld, die! A total of 9 Emperor's Throne Realm cultivators joined forces and attacked Ancestor Netherworld. Ancestor Netherworld's body shook, and the shadow of a giant ferocious beast appeared behind him again. Murderous aura swept in all directions, and he took the initiative to attack the giant silver tiger. Rumble! Countless terrifying attacks fell on his body, and a trace of blood immediately flowed from the corner of his mouth. However, he was unmoved. After forcefully breaking the giant silver tiger's claw he tore the giant silver tiger apart with his bare hands. Blood splattered in the sky. It was shocking. Kill him while he's down. The other 8 Emperor's Throne Realm cultivators were shocked, and they attacked again, not giving Ancestor Netherworld a chance to breathe. You bunch of trash want to kill me? Ancestor Netherworld's roar shook the mountains and rivers. He charged into the crowd and killed in all directions. His ferocious aura was monstrous, and his injuries were getting worse. Puff! Someone slashed at Ancestor Netherworld's neck with a sword. Instantly, his head flew off. Ancestor Netherworld is dead. Ancestor Netherworld is dead. That person was instantly ecstatic. Seeing this scene, Temple Master North Yun and the others were so furious that their eyes almost popped out. They shouted with all their might, Fellow Netherworld! Even Jiang Lei, who was within the Imperial Palace, trembled violently when she saw this, while her face turned incomparably pale. However, at the next moment, a cry of surprise came from the crowd. He's not dead? How is this possible? Under everyone's horrified gazes, Ancestor Netherworld's severed head automatically returned to his neck and recovered to its original state. Sword Venerable Hao Tian's pupils shrunk violently. Seeing that Ancestor Netherworld's face was getting paler, he couldn't help but ask, Is this a life substitution technique? Ancestor Netherworld wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. Monstrous demonic energy swept out from the depths of his eyes, Congratulations, you've successfully angered me. At this moment, a giant cauldron suddenly descended from the sky. It carried a monstrous aura and whistled toward Ancestor Netherworld. Scram! Ancestor Netherworld roared. He took a step and slammed into the giant cauldron. Buzz! The giant cauldron deviated and smashed into a mountain. The mountain was instantly set ablaze and turned into ruins. In the sky, a golden figure that looked like a god slowly descended with an oppressive aura. Cough, cough, cough. Ancestor Netherworld coughed up blood violently. A loser like you dares to appear in front of me? Sword Venerable Hao Tian and the others were overjoyed. My lord! The expressions of Hall Master Bei Yun and the others changed. The golden figure ignored everything and looked down at Patriarch Yellow Spring from above. The facts have proven that you're no match for me in the end. I've exhausted your strength with just a few ants. You're no longer a match for me. You can try. Ancestor Netherworld sneered. Give up. The golden figure's oppressive aura was like a mountain. Its voice shook the world. No one can save you today. I'll give you one more chance. Submit to me and I'll spare your life. Oh? Is that so? Practically at that moment, a cold voice suddenly resounded between the heavens and earth. Then, red snowflakes fell one after another. P.S. Chapter 5. Today's update is complete. Please give me some tickets. End of this chapter. Chapter 1300. Is that so? The voice was neither loud nor soft, but it spread to every corner of the world and shook the surroundings. As these words rang out, the earth-shattering battle instantly came to an abrupt halt. Countless people's expressions changed. An Emperor's Throne powerhouse subconsciously reached out to catch a snowflake. Just as he was about to crush it, he immediately screamed and turned into an ice sculpture. He fell to the ground and turned into countless ice shards. There's something wrong with this snow. Don't touch it. Sword Master Hao Tian seemed to have thought of something and immediately shouted. He urged all the spiritual essence in his body to form a vitality barrier outside his body. The rest of the people's expressions changed drastically, and they followed suit. Meanwhile, the eyes of the golden figure in the void were fixed on the falling red snowflakes. Artistic conception. He felt an extreme artistic conception from the red snowflake. The artistic conception was filled with endless killing intent, and it made him shudder. How is this possible? He felt a chill in his heart, and a look of disbelief appeared on his face. Who is it? Who the hell is it? Sword Master Hao Tian and the others looked at the void as if they were facing a great enemy. Their expressions were extremely ugly. On the other hand, the Patriarch of Yellow Spring was extremely excited. He almost shouted, "Fellow Yi, is that you?" The red snowflakes were still falling. An old man in black roared, "Who the hell is it? Show yourself if you can. What's the difference between sneaking around and a mouse?" Whoosh! At that moment, a shocking sword light fell from the void like a golden thunderbolt. It was so fast that it appeared in front of the old man in the blink of an eye. The old man in black had goosebumps all over his body. He immediately shouted, and countless barbs immediately appeared on the surface of his body, protecting him like dragon scales. It was his protective treasure, the soft hedgehog spirit armor. It could resist a fatal blow from an Emperor's Throne powerhouse and had resolved many crises for him. However, it was useless. The dazzling luster had easily pierced through his defensive treasure and split him into two. Even his spirit wasn't spared. His blood-curdling screams echoed throughout the world. A dignified Emperor's Throne realm expert was killed by a sword. From the beginning to the end, he didn't have the slightest ability to resist. He didn't even see who killed him. In an instant, the world fell silent. No one dared to make a sound. There was only endless terror in their hearts. That was an Emperor's Throne, but he died so miserably. For a moment, Sword Venerable Clear Sky and the others could not help but look at the golden figure in the void. The golden figure's eyes were like lightning as he said in a deep voice, "Since you're here, show yourself. As you wish." At this moment, a calm voice rang out. Then, a huge crack suddenly appeared in the void like a spider web. Then, two figures tore through the void and appeared. When they saw the face of the person leading the group, waves of exclamations and cries of surprise suddenly erupted in the surroundings. "Fellow Taoist Yi! Imperial Lord Yi! Yi Chen!" These voices were mixed with excitement, shock, surprise, and even astonishment. In the blink of an eye, these voices covered the entire world. Hall Master Bai Yun and the others were in disbelief. Jiao cried tears of joy. Sword Venerable Clear Sky and the others were stunned, their eyes filled with shock. The expression of the golden figure in the void, who was the envoy of the immortal palace, became extremely gloomy. The disdain in his eyes was gradually covered by a deep sense of fear. It was because he could not see through Yi Chen ever since he appeared. Yi Chen's figure slowly landed next to the Patriarch of Hell. He lifted his eyes to look at his injuries and eventually said softly, "Thank you for this." He and the Patriarch had known each other for a long time and trusted each other. However, under such circumstances, he was still extremely touched. The Patriarch of Hell was not an emotional person. He shook his head indifferently and chuckled, "I thought I would never see you again in this lifetime." As soon as he finished speaking, he seemed to have affected his injuries. He could not help but cough, and blood flowed from the corner of his mouth again. Yi Chen smiled lightly, "Go and rest for now. I'll be here today." "All right." The Patriarch of Hell did not argue. He took a deep look at the golden figure in the void. "Be careful. This guy still has some tricks up his sleeve." After saying that, he turned around and retreated to the side. Under everyone's gaze, Yi Chen turned around slightly. Then, his cold eyes swept past Sword Venerable Hao Tian and the rest slowly. Endless killing intent surged from the depths of his eyes. The temperature between heaven and earth immediately cooled down. The golden figure slowly descended from the void and looked straight at Yi Chen with a sinister gaze. "Who are you? How dare you interfere in the matters of the Immortal Palace?" "The people I want to kill are from the Immortal Palace." Yi Chen suddenly grinned. An extremely cold arc appeared at the corner of his lips. The former's gaze froze. "You." At that moment, an Emperor's throne powerhouse behind him could not help but step forward and say in a deep voice, "Sir, this is Yi Chen who killed Kuyunzi." The Immortal Palace envoy was stunned at first. Then, he looked at Yi Chen in shock. "Didn't the Immortal Palace send you into the Forbidden Sea? How did he manage to escape?" There was a hint of fear in his eyes. This brat was sent into the Forbidden Sea by the Immortal Palace. It was fine if he was not dead. He even seemed to have become stronger. The rest could not help but look at Yi Chen. Even Sword Venerable Hao Tian, Temple Master North Sea, and the rest were no exception. After all, it was rumored that the Forbidden Ocean was a prison of death. Anyone who was imprisoned there would never be able to escape. Yi Chen seemed to say mockingly, "Naturally, it's because of my determination to destroy your immortal palace that drove me to break through the Forbidden Ocean and return." "Just you?" Immortal Palace's emissary laughed from extreme anger. "Yi, you came at the right time." Sword Venerable Haotian glared at Yi Chen coldly and mocked. "My Haotian sword sex Sword Master Haotian died in your hands. I must tear you into pieces today to vent my hatred." "Not bad." Another powerhouse stood out and smirked coldly. "Yi, so what if you're stronger than us? Today, with Immortal Palace Great One here, together with more than 20 of us at the Emperor's throne realm, you won't be so lucky this time." The expressions of the Hall Master and the others slightly changed after hearing this. They could still share some of the pressure for Yi Chen, but everyone present knew that the greatest pressure came from the Immortal Palace envoy and the remaining Emperor's throne powerhouses. Could Yi Chen deal with them? Under countless gazes, Yi Chen smiled lightly. "Old man, you want to compete with me in numbers?" At the next moment, He slowly raised his hand and waved it down. In an instant, the space above everyone's heads distorted again. Before everyone could react, more than 10 old figures suddenly tore through the air and landed behind Yi Chen. End of this chapter. Chapter 1301. Greetings, Lord Yi. Heavenly Venerable Bei Yun and the others bowed to Yi Chen and cupped their fists. Their voices were like thunder, shaking the surroundings. Dead silence. The world suddenly fell into a dead silence. Everyone stared dumbfoundedly at the dozen figures that suddenly appeared. After sensing the terrifying pressure emanating from their bodies, many people's expressions suddenly changed. Their foreheads immediately broke out in cold sweat uncontrollably. Emperor's throne stage, all of them were at the Emperor's throne stage. Even the faces of Hall Master Bei Yun and the others were filled with disbelief. Where did so many Emperor's throne powerhouses come from? Only the Immortal Palace emissary's pupils constricted slightly, and then he said coldly, "So it's the prisoners we sent into the Forbidden Sea back then. I didn't expect you all to still be alive. Dogs of the Immortal Palace, the heavens have eyes, allowing us to return to the ancient barren world in our lifetime." Heavenly Venerable Bei Yun looked at the former coldly and smiled sinisterly. "We will use our remaining lifespans to fight to the death with your Immortal Palace. Just you bunch of trash?" The Immortal Palace emissary smiled disdainfully. Heavenly Venerable Bei Yun did not argue with him. Instead, he took a step forward and swept his gaze across the crowd. "This old man is the founder of the North Sea Dragon Subduing Hall, Heavenly Venerable Bei Yun. Is there anyone from my North Sea Dragon Subduing Hall?" As his voice fell, the originally deathly silent world suddenly surged with waves of tempestuous waves. "What? He's the Heavenly Venerable Bei Yun? The Heavenly Venerable Bei Yun, who founded the North Sea Dragon Subduing Hall more than 10,000 years ago? This person is actually still alive, oh my God!" Countless people's faces turned pale and they were extremely shocked. When Hall Master Bei Yun heard this, he immediately rushed out of the crowd and knelt heavily in front of Heavenly Venerable Bei Yun. He said with a trembling voice, "Unfilial disciple Zi Kunlun, North Sea Dragon Subduing Hall's third-generation Hall Master, greets the founder of the Hall. North Sea Dragon Subduing Hall will join the resistance against the Immortal Palace from now on. Do you have any objections?" Heavenly Venerable Bei Yun said without anger. Hall Master Bei Yun nodded heavily. "Disciple is willing." Pure World Zen Sect ancestor Bao Xian's Buddhist power was imposing. "Pure World Zen Sect of the West is here?" An old monk wearing a monk robe and standing on a lotus throne immediately walked out of the crowd. "Greetings, Lord Buddha. World Cleansing Sect will join the resistance against Immortal Palace. Do you have any objections?" Buddhist Master Bao Xian asked. The old monk put his palms together solemnly. "The 36,000 disciples of the Buddhist sect are willing to sacrifice themselves for the greater good. Are the South Sea monster spirits present? Descendant of the Light Palace, come out and see me." In an instant, the dozen or so Emperor's throne powerhouses that Yi Chen had brought with him appeared one after another. They found the descendants of the orthodoxy they had left behind in the past. Most of them were forces that were on good terms with Yi Chen. What was more interesting was that one of the founders of the Thousand Transformations sect charged into the crowd of Sword Venerable Hao Tian and the rest. He reached out and grabbed a burly man's ear and walked toward Yi Chen's camp. He cursed, "You bastard, how could I have such an ungrateful descendant like you? If I had known earlier, I would have beaten your father to the wall." Primogenitor, disciple was wrong, disciple was wrong. The Thousand Transformations sect's current sect master's face was flushed red, but he didn't dare to retort, allowing the sect master to scold him as he apologized profusely. "The master of the Great Precipice Cave, right?" Behind Yi Chen, the old Great Precipice Cave master pointed at a white-haired old man and scolded loudly, "Get your ass over here right now. Otherwise, this old man will clean up my Great Precipice Cave's door right now." The latter's expression changed. He immediately walked from Sword Venerable Hao Tian's camp to Yi Chen's side. He lowered his head and allowed the old master of the Great Precipice Cave to scold him. The Emperor's throne powerhouses in Yi Chen's camp recognized the descendants of Sword Venerable Hao Tian and the rest. In less than 10 minutes, there were less than 15 Emperor's throne powerhouses left in Sword Venerable Hao Tian's camp. The rest were all successfully instigated to join Yi Chen's camp. This scene infuriated Sword Venerable Hao Tian and the rest to the point of vomiting blood. Previously, they had the absolute advantage in terms of the number of powerhouses and their peak combat power. However, who would have thought that nearly 10 people would defect in an instant, causing the situation to change drastically? Lord Yi, Heavenly Venerable North Sea could not help but look at Yi Chen. His eyes were filled with inquiry as if he was waiting for his order. Kill, don't leave a single one alive. Yi Chen waved his hand lightly, his voice extremely indifferent. As soon as he said that, the originally peaceful world was instantly drowned by countless earth-shaking killing intent. Before Yi Chen arrived, there were more than 10 Emperor's throne powerhouses helping the Patriarch of Hell. In addition to the dozen people Yi Chen brought, including Heavenly Venerable North Sea, as well as the nearly 10 people who were instigated by Hall Venerable North Sea and the rest. In other words, there were nearly 40 Emperor's throne powerhouses by Yi Chen's side. On the other hand, there were only a dozen or so people left in Sword Venerable Hao Tian's camp. Kill all these lackeys of the Immortal Palace. Heavenly Venerable North Sea and the rest attacked Sword Venerable Hao Tian and the rest with murderous intent. A great battle broke out immediately. For a moment it was incomparably chaotic. Countless abilities collided fiercely. From time to time, screams would explode in the world, accompanied by thick blood mist rising into the air. The envoy from the Immortal Palace acted as if he did not see this scene. His indifferent gaze remained on Yi Chen. Yi Chen stared at him quietly. Even though the surrounding killing intent was overflowing, no one from either side attacked the two of them because everyone knew that the real battle was between the two of them. The outcome of these two would determine the balance of the battle. Yi Wushuang, who was next to Yi Chen, was filled with sword intent. He looked at the envoy from the Immortal Palace eagerly. "Big brother, I'll go kill him. Leave this person to me." Yi Chen shook his head slightly and said coldly, "I want to personally take his head. It's the first gift to the Immortal Palace." Shameless boasting. When the envoy heard this, he was so angry that he laughed. "Do you really think you can be so arrogant just because you have the help of a few ants? None of you will survive today." After saying that, he waved his sleeve, and the space beside him suddenly distorted violently. Boom! The sky split open, and a godlike figure shot out from the huge crack. Immediately, a man dressed in snow-white clothes appeared. Emperor Lord Dong Li. At that moment, Heavenly Venerable North Sea and the others who were fighting could not help but pause. Their eyes were filled with shock as they looked at the white-clothed figure. Yi Chen sneered, "This move again? Leave him to me." Without waiting for Yi Chen to speak, Yi Wushuang's figure flashed and he charged at Yi Dongli first. The sword intent on his body swept out, and his eyes were filled with battle intent. It was because he saw something in common with Yi Dongli. It was as if the two of them were going to have a battle in the dark. "Everyone says that you're the #1 person in the primordial era 10,000 years ago. You suppressed the world, and you're even known as the Supreme Sword Dao." Yi Wushuang looked at Yi Dongli quietly, and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. "My name is Wushuang, unparalleled in the Sword Dao. Sorry for offending you today." End of this chapter. Chapter 1302. Yi Dongli's white clothes fluttered, looking magnificent. His hollow eyes stared at Yi Wushuang. Flames faintly bloomed in the depths of his eyes, as if he had sensed fate's arrangements. "Today, the two of us will only talk about the sword." Yi Wushuang's gaze was calm. "I hope you won't disappoint me." As soon as he finished speaking, the wind and clouds changed and the stars moved. Boundless sword gleams condensed around him. They were endless, and the number was unimaginable. It was not an exaggeration to say that they covered the sky and covered the sun. Whoosh whoosh! At the same time, a monstrous sword cry came from Yi Dongli's body. It was earth-shattering, like rolling thunder. Boom! In the next moment, the two of them seemed to have made an agreement. Their figures moved like lightning, charging towards each other. Sword gleams covered the sky, and endless sword chi collided. This was a battle between Yi Wuxuang and Yi Dongli. It was also a battle of the sword Tao that they had agreed on. It had nothing to do with grudges or life and death. This scene was also noticed by Heavenly Venerable North Sea and the others who were fighting. When they sensed the clash of wills between the two of them, many people turned pale. Even the Immortal Palace emissary's expression could not help but change. He did not expect Yi Wuxuang to grow so quickly. Yi Chen retracted his gaze and looked at the former quietly. His eyes flickered. Now, it's our turn. Kill. The Immortal Palace emissary did not say anything unnecessary. He directly used the most forceful method to attack Yi Chen. Boom! At that moment, his body suddenly expanded, growing from 8 feet to more than 10 feet. His steel-like body flickered with a cold metallic luster. In an instant, the void trembled, deafening. Endless pressure spread out in all directions with him as the center, wanting to suppress everything. Tap, tap, tap. Under such terrifying pressure, no matter who it was, their expressions suddenly changed, and they could not help but take a few steps back. So powerful! Heavenly Venerable North Sea and the others had incomparable fear in their eyes. Meanwhile, Sword Venerable Hao Tian and the others could not help but sneer in anticipation. It was as if they could see Yi Chen dying at the hands of the Immortal Palace emissary. Lowly ant die. The Immortal Palace emissary's gaze was cold. He suddenly slapped a sky-shattering palm at Yi Chen. Boom! The void instantly collapsed. The black palm imprint was like a cloud that covered the ground. It whistled forward, and the berserk energy was like a tsunami that swept through all directions. Soul Formation Intermediate Stage. At that moment, Yi Chen sensed his opponent's strength immediately. He could not help but squint and say, "No wonder you have the confidence to attack me. Unfortunately, I'm also at the Soul Formation Intermediate Stage. On top of that, he's at the Soul Formation Mid-Stage with a Divine Grade Tao Foundation." After he finished speaking, he gently raised his right palm, and divine light immediately erupted from his palm, like the aura of chaos, causing all things to pale in comparison. Without a sound, he slammed out with his palm, instantly piercing through the void. A huge palm took shape in the void, rumbling forward, colliding with the giant hand. Rumble! Suddenly, a huge flame swept out in all directions. It was as if lava had erupted, and the terrifying aftershocks destroyed everything. At that moment, everyone stopped what they were doing and stared at the place where the two of them were fighting. When the storm scattered, the Immortal Palace emissary's hands that were behind his back were trembling slightly. There were traces of blood flowing out. Meanwhile, Yi Chen stood proudly in the air, looking down at the people. The Immortal Palace emissary's expression was extremely gloomy. This was only the first time they fought, but Yi Chen had already broken his spell and even injured him. How was this possible? He was the Immortal Palace's genius, an existence that could look down on any saint spirit in the world, but now, he was injured by an ant. Before everyone could react, the Immortal Palace emissary let out a long roar and formed a seal with his hands. Kacha, the clouds split open, and a bolt of purple lightning illuminated the sky. Under everyone's gazes, the Immortal Palace emissary was like a true immortal descending to the mortal world. Lightning surged all over his body, and a terrifying halberd that was about to materialize gradually appeared in his hands. What method is this? At that moment, countless people's hearts trembled. They all felt the heart-palpitating power coming from that terrifying halberd. That seems to be an existence that surpasses a spirit treasure. The oldest Zen master Bao Xian cried out involuntarily, "Supreme spirit treasure, this is a supreme spirit treasure." As soon as these words were spoken, heaven and earth fell silent. "Aunt, kneel and I'll spare your life." The Immortal Palace emissary waved his terrifying halberd and charged at Yi Chen. The killing intent in his heart rose to the extreme. He was a prodigy of the Immortal Palace. How could he lose to a secular ant? The pupils of Heavenly Venerable North Sea and the others constricted violently, and their hearts rose to their throats. Can Emperor Yi take it? Under such circumstances, everyone could tell that the Immortal Palace emissary was serious, containing a thunderous rage. Yi Chen remained unmoved in the face of such a terrifying might. A cold gleam flashed through his eyes. "Forget it, I'll let you experience the divinity that I cultivated in the Forbidden Sea." At the next moment, he took a step forward and raised his head to look at the sky. His eyes were filled with monstrous lightning, thunder. Under everyone's gazes, the wind and clouds in the surroundings moved. Endless thunderclouds gathered densely, shaking heaven and earth. It was as if they were tearing the sky apart and sweeping the earth. Not long after, they gathered into a 3,000-meter pool of lightning above Yi Chen's head. At that moment, Yi Chen seemed to have become a huge vortex. A vortex that attracted lightning from all directions, causing endless lightning to turn into a pool of lightning. Then, overwhelming lightning power surged into his body. At that moment, Yi Chen seemed to have transformed into Emperor Lei Xing. His body was covered in lightning, and his might was vast and mighty. Everyone stiffened as they watched this scene without moving. The expressions on their faces suddenly froze, and their eyes surged with monstrous shock. Even the Immortal Palace emissary's figure paused. When he looked at Yi Chen again, there was a dense coldness in his eyes. 10,000 bolts of lightning forge my body. My life is like a demon's desire to seal the heavens," Yi Chen said coldly. He raised his right hand and pointed at the Immortal Palace emissary. "Universe collapsing lightning strike." Oh no! Almost at that moment, the Immortal Palace emissary's expression changed drastically, and he subconsciously blurted out. Then, he immediately turned into a streak of light, as if he was about to leave. How was this possible? A mere ant from the secular world could actually use such a heavenly phenomenon ability. One had to know that even some of the great figures in the Immortal Palace could not do this. He roared in his heart. However, he had already eaten it. As Yi Chen's last word fell, the lightning that was known as the fastest in the universe enveloped a radius of 3,000 meters and struck her body at lightning speed. No. The former roared unwillingly. Rumble. At that moment, everyone felt their vision blur. They could no longer see anything clearly, and their ears were ringing. It was as if their 6 senses had been sealed, and they could not sense the outside world. After an unknown period of time, when everyone gradually recovered their 6 senses and could vaguely see everything in this world, the scene that entered their eyes caused them to be speechless for a long time. Within a radius of 3,000 meters, everything had been turned into nothingness. All the clouds, all the rocks, and all the plants no longer existed. Only a figure with white hair fluttering in the wind, eyes as deep as the ocean, possessing a supreme elegance, stood aloof from the world. At that moment, the heavens and earth were deathly silent. Everyone's jaws dropped in shock. An existence as powerful as the Immortal Palace emissary. In the blink of an eye, he was reduced to ashes. P.S. Chapter 3 updated today. Sorry for the long wait. End of this chapter. Chapter 1303. The emissary of the Immortal Palace is dead? When countless people looked away from Yi Chen's figure, they looked at the empty void. Everyone looked at each other and remained silent. That was someone from the Immortal Palace. Since ancient times, Many experts in the ancient desolate realm had tried to resist the immortal palace, but in the end, they all died at the hands of the immortal palace. However, Yi Chen had killed the emissary of the immortal palace. Lord is dead? Below, Sword Venerable Hao Tian and the others trembled, and their faces turned deathly pale. Before this, the emissary of the immortal palace was an invincible existence in their hearts. That was why they risked everything and would rather stand against the ancient desolate realm and become their vassals. However, the legend in their hearts had fallen. Plop. Thinking to this point, many people felt as if all the strength in their bodies had been drained. They fell to the ground one after another, their faces filled with despair. Sword Venerable Hao Tian spat out a mouthful of blood and almost could not stand still. He muttered, "The situation is hopeless. Good kill." The Patriarch of Hell, who was watching from afar, could not help but laugh out loud. It seemed to have affected his injuries, and he immediately coughed again. Thunderous cheers erupted from the Ahuang kingdom behind him. That was because with the death of the emissary of the immortal palace, it meant that this earth-shattering battle had finally come to an end, and they were the victors. Heavenly Venerable Bei Yun looked at Yi Chen with an extremely complicated expression. Then, he knelt on one knee and shouted like thunder, "Congratulations, Immortal Master Yi. You're invincible in the world after fighting immortal extermination." Ba. Zen Master Bao Xian also bowed slightly. He pressed his palms together and chanted, "Congratulations, Immortal Master Yi. You're invincible in the world after fighting immortal extermination." "We congratulate Immortal Master Yi. You're invincible in the world after fighting immortal extermination." At that moment, be it Fairy Yuqing and the other ancient powerhouses, or the new giants like Hall Master Bei Yun, all of them bowed to Yi Chen. Even the tens of thousands of people in the city of Ahuang Kingdom worshipped Yi Chen at the same time. Their expressions were extremely fanatical. "Son-in-law is too powerful." Jiu who was below, looked at the figure standing in the sky with incomparable excitement. It was like a god of the 9 heavens accepting the worship of all living beings in the world. Even the major figures of the various supreme sects had to lower their heads in respect. Since ancient times, apart from Yi Dongli from 10,000 years ago, who else possessed such a disdainful aura? Meanwhile, on the other side of the battlefield, boom! As Yi Wushuang unleashed sword intent that filled the sky, it meant that the winner between the two of them had been decided after he shattered the supreme sword qi in Yi Dongli's body. Even though your sword Dao is strong, it's still slightly inferior. Yi Wushuang watched Yi Dongli's falling body calmly, and shook his head lightly. When Celestial Sovereign North Sea and the others saw this, their faces became even more bitter and their hearts were filled with complicated emotions. Before this, Yi Chen had killed the Immortal Palace emissary. Later on, Yi Wushuang defeated Yi Dongli with his sword. This caused all of them, who had witnessed countless years of history, to involuntarily sigh as if they had grown old. When Yi Chen's gaze landed on the remaining 10 people, including Sword Venerable Haotian, they immediately felt a cold killing intent. Someone trembled and said, "We're willing to stop fighting and surrender." Even the Immortal Palace envoy was dead. How could they be Yi Chen's match? Moreover, Celestial Sovereign North Sea and the rest were eyeing them covetously. Bang! Yi Chen raised his hand, and a terrifying divine light erupted from his palm. He killed the former on the spot. Seeing this, a secret realm giant's eyes widened and he said, "We're all willing to surrender. Why did you still attack? Surrender just because you said so? Then how innocent are the people who died because of me this time?" Yi Chen said calmly. With that, he took a step forward and charged at Sword Venerable Haotian and the rest like a tiger entering a pack of wolves. "You still want to stop fighting? If I don't kill all of you today, I won't stop fighting." Someone took out a protective spirit treasure in an attempt to resist. Crack! However, it could not withstand a single blow from Yi Chen's jade-white palm. It shattered upon contact, and even the former was killed on the spot. If you want to die, let's die together. An old monster knew that he would definitely die. Madness appeared on his face as he tried to self-destruct to severely injure Yi Chen. However, before he could self-destruct, Yi Chen flipped his palm and smashed the former into a meat patty. His soul melted as well. Yi Chen's green clothes fluttered as he slaughtered in the crowd. No matter how monstrous your vitality was, he only needed a palm to cause the world to bleed. Many old monsters retreated. Everyone watched this scene silently. They only felt that the figure in front of them was peerless and extraordinary. Who could compete with him? In the end, he killed most of the remaining Emperor's throne stage cultivators, leaving only Sword Venerable Haotian. The latter did not beg for mercy, nor was he angry. He only looked at Yi Chen with incomparable resentment. Do you think you've won against the Immortal Palace? No, you haven't. The terror of the Immortal Palace is beyond your imagination. Ha ha ha, I'll wait for you below. With that, he was about to self-destruct. However, Yi Chen stretched out his hand and held it tightly. Yi Chen looked at him expressionlessly. No, you don't even have the right to be a ghost. As soon as he said that, golden divine flames bloomed from his palm, enveloping Sword Venerable Haotian. Only the miserable cries of ghosts and wolves were left in the world. Burn his bones to ashes, extract his soul and refine it. Yi Chen allowed Sword Venerable Haotian's screams to fill the world. He wanted everyone to know. He, Yi Chen, could not be bullied, let alone provoked. After an unknown period of time, when the last bit of Sword Venerable Haotian's ashes scattered between heaven and earth, Yi Chen walked to the Patriarch of Hell slowly. Yi Chen walked to the Patriarch of Hell slowly. He extended his arm and placed it on his wrist. He channeled some spiritual power into him to check on his injuries. At that moment, the Patriarch of Hell's face was extremely pale. It was as if a gust of wind could blow him down, and the true origin energy in his body was like a dry well. You're severely injured. Yi Chen sighed softly and looked at him guiltily. The exhaustion of true origin energy is secondary. The main thing is that you seem to have forcefully used some secret technique that damaged your primordial spirit. The primordial spirit was too important to cultivators. If it was damaged, one's cultivation base would fall, and one's soul would be destroyed. Fortunately, I came in time. Yi Chen could not help but nod as he spoke to this point. I'll personally refine pills for you later to recover your primordial spirit. Yi Chen did not have many friends in this world. The Patriarch was one of them. The former had risked his life to help him many times. How could he not be touched? It's fine. I believe you have a way. The Patriarch of Hell endured his injuries and smiled at the capital behind him. Go see your parents and daughter first. I'm afraid they can't wait any longer. Mom, Dad, warmth surged from the depths of Yi Chen's initially serious eyes when he heard that. His emotions were faintly stirred. Chapter 1304. In the Imperial Palace of a Huang Kingdom. In a spacious hall, a slightly skinny middle-aged beauty paced back and forth, occasionally looking out of the hall. Beside her, a middle-aged man sat with a little girl in his arms. The middle-aged man had a stern expression, as if he was serious. Old Yi, why is there no movement outside? The middle-aged beauty paced back and forth, her eyes filled with worry. Could it be that little Chern? She could not help but tear up as she spoke. As soon as those words were spoken, the middle-aged man who was sitting still stiffened. He then took a deep breath and said, You have to believe in little Chen. He'll be fine. Believe. You only know how to believe. The middle-aged beauty immediately turned around and glared at him. She said with a sobbing tone, Little Chen isn't your son, so you're not worried? Are all you fathers so heartless? Look at what you're saying. The middle-aged man could not help but smile bitterly. Grandpa, Grandma, stop arguing. Seeing that the situation was not right, the little fellow in the middle-aged man's arms immediately struggled out and persuaded, Daddy will be fine. Daddy is very powerful. At that moment, heavy footsteps rang out from outside. At the same time, the guards who were in charge of protecting the middle-aged couple and the other two knelt on one knee. Hearing that, the middle-aged beauty thought that Jiang Lei had come in. She immediately went out and subconsciously said, "Your Majesty, I wonder how my little Chen is doing?" With that, she bowed slightly, as if she was bowing. However, in the next moment, a gentle force gently lifted her up, and a faint chuckle rang out beside her ear. "Mother, I can't accept your bow." Hearing that extremely familiar voice, the middle-aged couple's bodies stiffened. At that moment, the bodies of the middle-aged couple stiffened, after which, they trembled as they looked at the figure outside the hall. Rich emotions surged within their eyes. Little Chen, a hoarse and trembling voice came from their mouths. Outside the hall, the skinny figure also raised his head slightly at that moment. His youthful face was the same as before his family was separated. However, there was an additional trace of vicissitudes between his brows. Yi Chen moved slightly as he stared blankly at the two people before him. The longing and guilt that had been buried in his heart for a long time finally erupted at that moment. Thump! He took a few steps forward and knelt on the ground. He took a deep breath and chuckled. "Dad, Mom, your son has finally found you." Little Chen, Yi Mu Wu Lan looked at the young face in front of her eyes that was familiar to the depths of her soul, and her tears couldn't help flowing out. She stretched out her hand and gently touched that face. She was very careful, afraid that it was just an illusion. Yi Chen did not move at all and allowed her to touch him. His heart trembled when he felt the touch that was connected by blood. "Xiaochen, it's really you." Feeling the warmth coming from that face, Wu Lan suddenly hugged him tightly and cried tears of joy. No one knew how much she missed her son. She and Yi Chen's father were ordinary people. They did not have high expectations for their son. They only wanted to live a peaceful life with their family. However, fate was unpredictable. It separated their family for almost 2 years. During those 2 years, the two of them were in a different place and had no relative. The reason why they lived was because of the yearning hidden in each other's hearts. And today, the scene that had reincarnated countless times in the dream. It had finally come true. At that moment, Yi Hai carried the little girl and walked to Yi Mu's side. His originally serious face was covered by unconcealable excitement. Yi Chen lifted his head slightly and looked at his father, who had lost a lot of weight. He could not help but shout, "Dad! Brat, you still recognize me? Your mother and I thought we would never see you again." Yi Hai's eyes turned hot, and he subconsciously adopted the dignity of a strict father. "Shut up!" Wu Lan immediately turned around and glared at him fiercely. "All you know how to do is scold your son. How much danger did little Chen go through to find us? What have you done as his father? What right do you have to scold him?" Wu Lan, who had always been gentle, could not help but be anxious at that moment. It was as if she was protecting her child. Yi Hai could only force a smile. He then looked at Yi Chen again and said in a trembling voice, "Dad has such a bad temper. Just listen to it. Don't take it to heart, sigh." Yi Chen nodded lightly. The Yi family was more traditional, like most families. Ever since Yi Chen was young, Yi Hai had always been serious and old-fashioned. He was not good at expressing his emotions. The little girl, Meng Meng, who was standing aside, widened her black eyes and looked at the three of them. She suddenly covered her eyes with her hands and said, "Yeah, it's so mushy." The three of them could not help but laugh when they heard that. Originally, the family reunion was a warm and touching scene, but the atmosphere was completely destroyed by the little fellow's words. "Little girl, come here for Daddy." Yi Chen could not help but laugh. He then picked her up with one hand and kissed her hard on the cheek. "Little girl, you've grown bold. You even dare to make fun of Daddy, Grandpa, and Grandma." As he spoke, he scratched the little girl's armpit. The little girl giggled happily and struggled. "Grandpa, Grandma, help! Daddy is bullying me. This girl should let the little devil, Xiaoxing, teach her a lesson." Lan could not help but laugh as she watched from the side. Just as she said that, her eyes dimmed. Yi Chen stood up when he heard that. He could not help but move his eyes back and forth between the two of them with a dubious expression. Dad, Mom, I heard that you guys gave birth to a younger brother for me?" As soon as he said that, the smiles on Wu Lan and Yi Hai's faces disappeared. The atmosphere in the room gradually became a little heavy. Yi Chen released his divine consciousness. He could not help but frown after looking around. "Dad, Mom, where's my brother?" Wu Lei could not help but cover his mouth with his hand, as if he was holding back his tears. Yi Chen could not help but look at Yi Hai. Yi Hai sighed softly when he met his gaze and said, "Your brother was taken away by the Immortal Palace before you went to Jixia Academy to look for us." As soon as he said that, the atmosphere in the hall suddenly cooled down. It was as if it had dropped by dozens of degrees. Yi Chen's eyes shone brightly. "Why did the Immortal Palace take my brother away? When your brother was born, he had the 8-armed heavenly god avatar on his back. He could walk when he was only half a year old, and he was extremely strong." Yi Hai shook his head slightly. At that time, even Kuyunzi was alarmed. "He appeared and said that your brother had the potential of a heavenly god. He even took your brother in as his disciple." At this point, he smiled bitterly. "In fact, your mother and I thought that it was not a good thing. After all, the tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind." Chapter 1305. And the result proved our worries. Yi Hai closed his eyes and took a deep breath in. "When your brother was first taken in as Kuyunzi's disciple, he could still see us often, but later on, we had fewer and fewer chances to see him." He paused for a moment as if he was regretting it. "When your brother was a year old, we couldn't see him anymore. We asked Kuyunzi, and he said that he sent your brother to a place that taught immortal methods to learn a mortal method. He told us not to worry." Wu Lan wiped her tears and said, "If we had known that this would happen, your father and I wouldn't have agreed to Kuyunzi taking him as a disciple. We wouldn't have let your brother leave our side even if we had to risk our lives." Yi Chen's eyes flickered. "Before this, Kuyunzi told me that my brother doesn't have a heart? Is that true? He didn't lie to you?" Yi Hai nodded and said, "I don't know if it's because your mother and I rode on the ghost ship that your brother was congenitally deficient." At this point, he shook his head and said, "Later on, Kuyunzi changed your brother's heart, and your brother was fine. Would Kuyunzi be so kind as to change his brother's heart?" Yi Chen seemed to be smiling mockingly. "He even dared to ask me to hand over my heart. What else wouldn't he dare to do?" He suddenly felt a little regretful. If he had known this would happen, he would not have killed Kuyunzi. He should have suppressed him and slowly asked about his brother, the Immortal Palace, and Su Yuhan. At that moment, Wu Lan looked at Yi Chen with red eyes all of a sudden. "Xiaochen, you must save your brother. Your brother resembles you a lot. Although you've never met him, we've always told him about you. Your brother is secondary." Yi Hai sighed faintly. "It's mainly because of Yuhan. She seems to be in the hands of the Immortal Palace, and she's pregnant. As a man, you can't watch them suffer." "Yi, what are you talking about?" Wu Lan glared at him angrily. "What do you mean Xiaoxing is secondary? Isn't Xiaoxing your son?" "That's not what I meant." Yi Hai frowned. "I'm saying that our Yi family owes Yuhan too much. Even if we have to save her, we have to save Yuhan and her son first. Don't forget how much pressure Yuhan was under when Xiaochen disappeared back then." Wu Lan had no choice but to turn her head away, feeling dejected. "Dad, Mom." Yi Chen took a deep breath in and chuckled softly. He said as if he was promising, "Don't worry. Whether it's my brother or Yuhan and her son, I'll bring them back safe and sound. Our family will be fine." "Save Mommy, I'm going to save Mommy." The little girl came over and pushed Yi Chen away. She lifted her head and said, "Daddy, let's go save Mommy and brother. Don't let the bad guys bully them." Yi Chen pinched her cheeks angrily. "I'll be grateful if you don't bully your brother when we meet." "Of course not." The little fellow pouted and muttered, "If I see my little brother, I'll buy him a lot of delicious food. I'll beat up whoever bullies him." After saying that, she waved her little fist. 5 days passed in a flash. During these 5 days, Yi Chen spent most of his time with his parents and daughter. The family had been separated for almost 2 years, so he cherished this short period of time. In order to let his parents walk out of their repressed emotions, he even brought them around the entire ancient, desolate realm. Apart from that, he ordered people to collect countless precious spiritual herbs and personally started refining pills. He successfully refined the beast soul-nourishing pill to help the Patriarch of Hell recover from his injuries. Ever since he returned from the Forbidden Sea, killed the Immortal Palace emissary, and killed many Emperor's throne cultivators, the entire ancient desolate realm had long since prostrated at his feet. Whether it was a peerless sect or a supreme family, all of them bowed their heads and did not dare to be disrespectful. On the morning of the 6th day, Misty Valley. Misty Valley was located in the extreme west of the ancient desolate realm. It was known as the most dangerous place in the ancient desolate realm. There were few people all year round, and it was covered in a thick aura of death. It was like a ghost town. Yi Chen stood at the entrance of the valley and lifted his eyes to look at the narrow passage that looked like a bloody mouth. He could feel the thick aura of death coming from it. He could not help but ask, "Is this the entrance to the Immortal Palace?" Yi Wushuang and the remaining 30 Emperor's throne cultivators in the entire ancient desolate realm followed behind him. However, many of them looked at the entrance with fear. "That's right." The former master of the square tower, Elder Pan, nodded slightly and said, "Back then, my master, Yi Dongli, killed his way to the Immortal Palace from the Misty Valley. As for the mysteries behind it, I don't know. 10,000 years ago, he was the boy who lit the fire in Yi Dongli's alchemy room. Because of his diligence, he was recognized by Yi Dongli, so he taught him the method of cultivation. This was also the reason why Elder Pan had been Yi Dongli's servant for so many years and even built the Square Tower, the largest intelligence force, to take revenge for Yi Dongli. "Fellow Yi," the master of the sword hut, Feng Taitsong, said in a low voice, "rumor has it that a great war took place in the Misty Valley 10,000 years ago. Countless emperors' throne realm powerhouses were buried there. Therefore, an endless aura of death and resentment has accumulated here. Even if we go deep into it, we will also be affected." As soon as he finished speaking, the pupils of the others constricted, as if they had long known about this rumor. The so-called resentment corpses were those whose will could not resist the aura of death and resentment, and gradually became lost in it, becoming a part of the Misty Valley. The aura of death is indeed very strong. The Patriarch of Hell narrowed his eyes and said, "But why did Yi Dongli choose this place as the entrance to the Immortal Palace back then? Perhaps this is the Immortal Palace's shrewdness." Yi Chen's eyes flashed imperceptibly. After all, even Emperor's throne cultivators do not dare to enter the Misty Valley. The secret inside is naturally not easily discovered. At this point, he could not help but look at Feng Taitsong and Elder Pan. "How much do you know about the Immortal Palace?" The master of the sword hut, Feng Taitsong, was Yi Dongli's sword-bearing boy. After Yi Dongli died, he established the sword hut like Elder Pan and only accepted one disciple. His goal was to create another Yi Dongli to destroy the Immortal Palace. Then the two of them knew the Immortal Palace better than ordinary people. I once heard the Eastly Imperial Lord mention that in this world, there is no such thing as immortals. The so-called immortals are just the fear of the weak toward the strong. Feng Taitsong pondered for a moment and looked at him. Therefore, this Immortal Palace is a group of cultivators similar to the Eastly Imperial Lord. Everyone could not help but nod when they heard that, as if they agreed with what he said. Yi Chen and the Patriarch of Hell looked at each other. Both of them shook their heads calmly. If there were no immortals, then why would the tribulation stage cultivators in the cultivation world risk their souls to undergo the tribulation? They simply wanted to ascend to the immortal world. Chapter 1307. Time flew, and it was the morning of the third day. In the secret room of a Huang kingdom, there was a vast formation fluctuation. It faintly emitted a trace of scorching heat, causing the space to distort. The Patriarch of Hell stood with his hands behind his back. He stared at the sealed secret room calmly, his eyes filled with anticipation. Buzz, at this moment, as the space trembled, the formation before him gradually dissipated, and a figure slowly walked out. The Patriarch of Hell asked, "How is it?" "It's done." Yi Chen chuckled softly and waved his sleeve. Hundreds of formation flags that emitted spiritual energy fluctuations appeared in the air. It was the repaired ancient teleportation formation. TSK. The Patriarch of Hell could not help but click his tongue when he saw that. "Fellow Yi, your formation Tao has exceeded my imagination. Even in the cultivation world, you're one of the best." The formation Tao was extremely profound. It paid attention to mutual promotion and restraint. Countless people could not take a step forward in their entire lives. However, Yi Chen had repaired the ancient teleportation formation that gave him a headache in just 3 days. How could he not be surprised? Patriarch Yi Chen suddenly stopped smiling and said to the former, "You don't have to come with me this time." The Patriarch of Hell was stunned at first, then he said in a deep voice, "Don't worry. I'll take good care of your parents." Initially, he planned to visit the so-called Immortal Palace hand in hand with Yi Chen. However, he soon realized Yi Chen's good intentions. "Please!" Yi Chen clasped his fists at him. He did not plan to bring his parents along to the Immortal Palace this time. After all, his parents were old, and it was not suitable for them to suffer the bumpy journey with him. The Patriarch of Hell said solemnly, "When are you leaving?" "I'll leave after bidding farewell to my parents." Yi Chen chuckled softly and took a step forward. He headed to the room where his parents were resting. In a spacious and simple room, Wu Lan and Yi Hai were already sitting upright while carrying Meng Meng. The two of them seemed to have guessed something. They looked at Yi Chen calmly as he walked in. The three of them looked at each other and were speechless. Plop! Yi Chen knelt heavily before the two elders and said, "Dad, Mom." Wu Lan covered her mouth and turned her face away. The family had just reunited, yet they had to be separated again. If it was anyone else, they wouldn't be able to endure the pain of parting. Yi Hai looked at Yi Chen quietly. Subsequently, he got up and walked over slowly to help him up. His lips moved slightly. "Go! Mom and Dad are old. We can't help you with our abilities, but we can still not drag you down. I only have one request for you. You have to bring Yuhan back safe and sound. If she loses a strand of hair," at this point, he couldn't help but blow his beard and glare, "then don't enter my Yi family's door in the future. I, Yi Hai, don't have a son like you." As soon as he finished speaking, he felt a sharp pain in his waist. He couldn't help but look at Wu Lan with a bitter smile. Yi Chen could not help but smile lightly, sure. An hour later, he walked out again with Yi Wushuang and Xiaohei by his side. He was carrying the little girl in his arms. The little guy's eyes were red, and he looked back from time to time, as if he was reluctant to leave his grandparents. "Go." Yi Chen glanced at Yi Wushuang and Xiaohei beside him. Then, he streaked across the sky on a sword gleam and headed toward Misty Valley. The Patriarch of Hell watched them leave and muttered to himself, "Fellow Yi, I'll wait for you to come back and have a drink with me." At this moment, a beautiful figure slowly appeared beside him. Jiang Lei looked in the direction where the three of them had left and finally asked softly, "Can they come back?" "Of course." The Patriarch of Hell said indifferently, "How can a mere immortal palace stump Fellow Yi? I'm still waiting to kill my way back to the cultivation world with him, ascend to the immortal world, and experience what it's like to be a fairy." Jiang Lei did not say anything and muttered to herself, "Mr. Yi, you're the second person after Yi Dongli. I thank you on behalf of the ancient, desolate realm." At the same time, The moment Yi Chen left, countless auras in the ancient desolate realm sensed him. In the North Sea Dragon subduing hall, Shi Qianhan was dressed in black, and his long hair fluttered in the wind. He stood at the peak of the mountain and looked into the sky, his eyes filled with emotion. Behind him were the North Sea Hall Master, Heavenly Venerable North Sea, and the rest. At that moment, these people looked at the sky with complicated expressions, as if they were sending someone off. "Brother Yi, I hope you'll return soon," Shi Qianhan muttered to himself. The scenes of him and Yi Chen meeting surfaced in his mind uncontrollably. From the Sea of Earth's Han Nation to the ghost ship trip, and their reunion in the ancient desolate realm. Yi Chen was ahead of him in all of that. What he had done was something that he looked up to and even wanted to pursue. In the Light Palace in the far north, Jiu Er, who was wearing a 5-colored divine robe, stared blankly at the sky. Her beautiful eyes were already wet with tears. "Young master, have a safe journey." "Jiu Er is useless, I can't help you," the Patriarch of Light hid in the distance and drank alone. When he was half drunk, he said in a muffled voice, "I'm old, we're all old. We welcome immortal Master Ye's return." In the entire ancient desolate realm, many peerless sects and supreme secret realms bowed to the sky at the same time. They knew very well what Yi Chen's trip represented. In the countless years of the ancient desolate realm, countless pioneers had fallen along the way. Their corpses had long become a part of the river of time. Even Yi Dongli from 10,000 years ago had collapsed due to the Tao. Ancient desolate realm, misty valley. 3 figures shot in like a mountain peak. Xiao He looked at the ancient stone platform in the valley and said, "Master, is this the ancient teleportation formation?" "That's right." Yi Chen nodded lightly and handed his daughter to Yi Wushuang. He took a few steps forward and formed hand seals with both hands. He shouted softly, "Formation, return to 1." Hundreds of formation flags shot out from his storage ring, emitting colorful light as they landed on the stone platform in an orderly manner. Subsequently, a white crystal the size of an egg appeared in the air. It was the supreme-grade spirit stone that Yi Chen had obtained earlier. With a thought, he immediately controlled the supreme-grade spirit stone and placed it into the groove at the center of the ancient teleportation formation. Buzz! As the air trembled, the ancient teleportation formation that had been sealed for a long time was finally activated. The surging power of the formation immediately spread out. "It's done." Xiao He was pleasantly surprised. However, Yi Chen turned around and looked out of the valley one last time. Then, he took a deep breath in and took his daughter from Yi Wushuang's arms. He turned around and walked into the ancient teleportation formation. Yi Wushuang and Xiao He followed after him. Buzz, buzz, buzz. As the intense teleportation power enveloped the 3 of them, they immediately felt like the world was spinning. Then, as a white light flashed, the 3 of them disappeared. Only a mumbling voice lingered on the spot. "Yuhan, I brought my daughter to look for you.